Okay, good. It's not. My microphone is not at least showing me that it can pick up my mouse clicks. It probably will pick up the keyboard though, but you know, that's fine.
That's
okay.
fine.
I've completely forgotten how to stream since it's been a bit, but
It's been like a week.
yeah, it's too long.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do nothing anymore. I do need to wiggle this around though because that cord is very close to my hands, and I will punch it and unplug the microphone, and that's not good. We don't want that. Let's just play on normal. Thanks. And let's hope that the volume for everything is fine, actually.
Let's burn an enemy's darkness shield away to expose a source point.
Good question. Where the fuck did my mouse go? Cycle tips. Never mind. Let's continue.
Back to the beginning. We all come to a story with hopes and expectations, looking for an answer. Sometimes it would be better to live with that hope without ever knowing the full story.
Oh, Alan.
I think Alan Wake will meet Dr.
In a
Darling
horror
will
story,
be really
there are only
awkward.
victims and monsters.
Wow, you sound
And
just
the trick
like
is not
me.
to end up as either. But trapped by the
That'd be pretty
genre,
great.
we are all ripped to
Sounds
pieces
just like
along
me,
the
but
way.
way more fun and cool. People want to be around you.
This is not the story I hoped it would be. This is not the ending I wanted. This story will eat us alive. This story is a monster. And monsters wear many faces.
Okay, that looks like it's way too loud. So we'll adjust that in a minute.
The music's totally got a bit loud. The menu's always so quiet where it asks you to set the volume.
I don't know,
Oh, there's a
but
bot.
am I Buttman?
We're Buttman. Oh, jeez.
It will not let me see.
Okay.
Lol. Okay, sorry. Listen, you can't give me a naked man and not expect me to try and see his ding dong. That's just how that works. Let's turn the music down to about 69.
Nice.
And then we'll turn this down about here. Can I set the children upstairs to off? But why are we naked?
Came out of the ocean.
But you're supposed to return to ocean.
Can't swim with clothes.
We are just staring at a dude's butt. I'm sorry.
It's there in the corner. You just try and focus on all these beautiful shrubs.
Oh god, I can't look up or I'm gonna look up his ass.
Okay, never mind.
Hello? Help!
What do you have underpants on if we tick the thing in the menu?
That's actually a good point. There is an option to censor nudity. Where was it? Graph? No.
Could be.
Not controls. Definitely not audio. Interface? Nudity sense. We can't talk about it now.
You've made your bed.
Well,
Gonna read what you saw. Here is Buttman.
it's a hell of an opening.
Yeah, we've been mooned immediately as soon as the opening cutscene ended. It's still ongoing.
The full moon out tonight.
See what you did.
Sorry, you hear whispering? I'm sure it's fine. Twitch, don't demonetize me. Don't be mad.
Sorry, but
It's just a butt. Everyone has it. Just a deer. Excuse me. Guy seems to have had a rough night. What are you? Camping do's and don'ts. That's too small to read. Do hike and enjoy the scenery. Do
something up your tent?
set up your tent.
That's a good idea.
Enjoy a nice meal and relax. I don't know what the don'ts are. Devo. The don'ts are don't scream.
Just don't be loud. Don't scream.
Don't stomp.
Don't beg for attention. Don't stomp.
Very easy things for everyone to do, I think. I've been trying to sprint this whole time.
Butt does move around a lot more when you sprint, I guess.
Yeah, but maybe we'll get through the butt section a little faster.
Just gotta get through the butt section.
Oh. That's fine. Hey, my game saved!
Nice.
Great! Wiggle butt.
Oh, wiggle butt.
Someone is not happy out there.
I don't like being moved.
Well, I'm sure man would put clothes on if we asked him to.
Let me find the band some clothes.
Oh, I don't think they're friendly.
Says you're in the light.
Oh! Ah! Okay.
Yeah, that bump man.
But man, I don't know what you've done to get yourself in this situation, but I would like to see you succeed. Ah! Alright, maybe it won't happen. Fuck. Can't really.
Keep falling over. Oh, because they're shooting you with guns.
Yeah. It can't hit me if I run serpentine.
It can't hit you if
Fuck!
you don't get it.
This poor man. Oh, bud, we should probably. Oh! Well, I don't think Buttman's gonna be okay.
That was fucking loud.
Oh! I'll turn off the epic achievements just as soon as this horrible scene is over. That's a stupid name.
Where's the rest of the stuff? I need to finish this. What the fuck?
Papa.
Some Buttmans have doink, okay?
Some Buttmans have done. And no hat.
Sucks for Buttman. It was a cool opening, though. I'm here for it. Consider me intrigued.
Alan!
Alan jump scare. You alright? Let's fucking go. I can pause. Okay, hold on. Y'all have to give me a second while where the fuck did Epic go?
Wait. Yeah, we need Epic to show.
I don't know where my achievements? No. Options. Account? Note settings.
Is this even settings for achievements?
Do I have to specifically go to settings for achievements?
Could we just, in the volume mix a mute epic?
Possibly? I wonder if the overlay will still scream, though, is the only thing.
Yeah. We really need it to not yell
Yeah.
whenever we do anything.
I mean, I'm just here. So
There's really just this one settings, and
let's just auto update.
it's open here again. Yeah, website.
Count? No, because that's just gonna open up this, which doesn't help me at all. Is there a way to open up Epic, like an Epic overlay? Do they have that? Is that a thing? Nope, that's
Does
friends.
Google know how to make the things show?
Possibly. Nope. I know how to do stuff.
Googling Google over here.
Oh, you simply play in offline mode.
Oh wow, Epic Games is so bad.
Yeah. Hey, Epic is kind of ass. I was incredibly disappointed to see that this was the only place where I could get this game. Okay, how do I go to offline mode?
How do we go find this? Did do not disturb said it disable all notifications. Is achievements his notifications?
Possibly?
This might work.
Here's hoping.
Yeah.
PSA. Epic is garbage.
Yeah, don't Epic if you have any other option.
Hey, kiddo. How are you?
I'm good, Mom. How are you?
This trip might take a little longer
They
than
did
I
launch
thought.
it with like no
sorry
functionality
I've been gone so much
whatsoever
lately,
and been
Logan.
slowly trying to
Oh my
add
God,
that
Mom,
in.
It's not your fault.
It's been
People get
years.
angry.
It's been years and they're still working on things like
Work stuff.
Right.
and not
Well,
deafening
Dad and
you
I are
every
just
time you
watching
do
the
anything
latest
in a
episode
video
of Night
game.
Springs here. Mom, it's so good.
No spoilers. I'll let you get back to the show. You were supposed to wait and watch with me.
Oh, Jim's gonna make more Night
I love you
Springs.
both.
I mean, I'm
This is
hoping.
what happens when you go on work trips, Mom. Love you too. And say hi to Casey. Tell him to stop brooding so much.
Logan? I will. Bye, kiddo.
He's pretty so far.
Logan thinks you should try cheering up.
That's
Snarky
Sam.
kid.
That's a Sam Lake
Where
right
she gets
there.
that from?
Sam, why have you put
That's
yourself in
Max
your
Payne
game?
right there.
It can't be a coincidence that another body turns
just
up just
posts
as we
up.
arrive in town.
It goes
Feels like the killer's leaving us a message.
relatively up.
I mean, I get it. If I was making
I'm
games, I would
glad
do it
you're on
too.
this case with me, Anderson.
Also,
Right
it's
up
not
your
Sam
alley.
Lake anymore. It's Sam
You
Lake.
should take a lead.
It is Sam Ocean, you're right.
Use the backup.
Sorry.
Okay. Any words of advice?
Nothing that would cheer anyone up. Here we are, Cauldron Lake.
Oh, we're
Need
back.
to get to work.
They're from the X-Files.
Modern day Mulder
A
and
deputy
Scully.
was
Let's
supposed to
go.
be here to show us to the crime scene. There's the car, so where's the deputy?
Eaten by a bear.
Alright. I'm sure there are collectibles.
Worth memorizing before we get swallowed up by the trees.
Yeah.
Hey, that didn't turn that
Didn't
off.
fucking do it. Epic, why are you like this?
That jump scare is every time we perform an action. Oh my god. How do you do anything? How do you do anything on Epic?
Before playing Alan Wake 2 on PC, disable this Epic Games feature. How do I do this, though? How do I play in offline mode?
How do playing offline work?
What do you mean I launched the game and then hit Control-Alt-Delete?
What?
EOS overlay renderer.
Oh, just disable the... That's... Wait, I think that did show up in the volume mixer. You should also probably...
Why are there 3 versions of it? Epic! Fix your shit!
You good?
Better be.
We'll find out next time we
I
do
think
anything.
I hear someone. Could
Also, map. Witch's hut. Witch's ladle.
Oh,
Bony-legged path. Who the fuck? Okay, they want me to go that way. Therefore, we're gonna wander off this way. Because I want to.
kind of leaving family calling his own over there.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
It's fine.
What is this? That's a dodge. Okay.
Dodge is still weird and silly.
What is
this can't be the right way.
Oh, you're yelling at me about going the wrong way. But I want to go over there. Fine, whatever. Whatever, game. I won't explore then.
Very rude of it to like hang for 5 seconds before making you turn around.
Right? So it is still a weird dodge. Great. Love that for us. Damn, what are we doing?
Is it still the same button as run?
Hey,
No.
Oh,
It's
okay.
run is still left shift,
Hey
but
there.
dodge is
Agent
space.
Casey, right?
Yeah.
Sheriff Breaker said you'd be coming by to take over the case. You're half right. Anderson?
I'm in
Saga
charge.
Anderson. I'll be leading this case. Seems you already know my partner, Alex Casey.
Shoot.
That's Alex Casey.
Sorry about
That is
man.
actually Max Payne.
I'm Deputy Mulligan.
Oh
Just
no!
figured,
These are Alan Wake characters.
Federal agents right here, Thornton.
Alan,
My
please.
partner Thornton, down at the crime scene. He's not what you call the sharpest axe in the shed.
Right here? What do you mean? Are they with you? Oh, shit! They didn't hear me, did they?
I think he's briefing.
What can you tell us about the crime scene?
Tell them about the heart.
I was getting to that, Thornton. Well, we reckon there are some organs that are currently outside the victim's
Just
person
the one organ,
when they should be, well, you know, inside.
His outsides or his insides are outside. Understood. I've
Were
hit
there
one.
any witnesses?
Weird that I have to
Yeah,
hit the numbers for
Couple
that. But
out-of-towners.
all right.
I wonder what they were doing sneaking around the woods at night.
Mention the city folk. It's pretty suspicious.
Not that we have anything against city folk, cried Thornton. But don't worry.
Have we
Sheriff
considered that they
Breaker
were
took
just
'em back to
hikers?
town a while ago.
I guess I can't see if
I
I can
wanna see the
scroll and
body.
click. Because there's
How do we
only
get
the one
there?
option.
Oh, sure, that's real simple. Just through the hole in the fence, down the hill towards the lake, around the old
Actually,
convenience
it's an
store.
ocean.
You can't miss it. Everything's been closed since the area was fenced off. The store, the campground, all of it.
Mulligan, tell them I'm here waiting. I'll show them around.
They got it, Thornton.
Before we get to the crime scene, there's time to review the facts of the case so far.
Ooh,
Make sure I'm seeing the clues
It's
clearly.
lovely.
it is a lovely.
Oh.
Even in the first. You said Mind Palace again. You're in the Mind
The
Palace.
mind-
Not the mind. Not the.
My version of the Mind Palace technique. To sift through clues and work
The
the
Mind
case.
Palace technique.
Building the mind place again for each case.
It's a very,
Field
very
office
serious
as a model in my head.
FBI technique. The Mind Palace.
The facts are on the board.
What do we
Everything
got?
know about the previous murders. Worth taking another look.
You get to connect Angry Red strings to things.
Yeah. We've got case board is mental technique that allows Saga to analyze clues and progress the investigation. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Let's see, we've got. Right, there was a thing that showed up over that, but okay. A series of murders have occurred around the town of Bright Falls. Finding connections will help our search for the killer. Slight difference in murders. Bloating only commonality in bodies, but not cause of death. Which is chest trauma. Chest trauma. Exposure to water post-mortem. All victims reported missing in 2010. No other commonality. Ted Lane, a dentist. He's got stab wounds, bloating, bruising on the wrists. Got Wendy Davis, a teacher. Her body was bloated, large chest wound. And then Percy Wolf, store owner, bruising, heart removed, strange tattoos.
Huh.
Found 2 weeks ago. Found in Coulter Lake in 2018. They were reported missing in 2010, discovered in 2012, buried in a shallow grave. Don't think you would see much bloating at that point. Just saying. Let's see. Bruising on wrists and legs. 2 of the victims had bruising, some form of restraint, strapped or belted down.
This is an Alan Wake story. You know, he's not gonna know that.
I know. Still gonna point it out though. just to remind us that Alan is a bad idiot man, actually. Most recent victim died of major chest trauma consistent with 2018 victim. Hard to confirm due to condition of body. Got a deep gash in the chest, and the heart is missing. All bodies experienced bloating. Bloating of the corpse is indicative of drowning, but only 1 victim was found in water. Or that they were in a warm place, or a lot of other options, really. But, you know, what do I know? What is this? Talk to someone. Oh, that's just telling me what to do about that.
Huh.
Okay, I guess, because I can't select it. Victim number 3 was covered in illegible tattoos. A message from the killer, maybe? Or their art? Apart from going missing in 2010, the victims have nothing apparent in common. They all went missing in 2010? Okay. Murder targets have no discernible
I thought they were
combinations.
miles apart from the descriptions on the pictures, sorry.
Right?
Oh, they just didn't get found? Still?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Weird. Killer may be a sportsman or hunter. Chest trauma resembles animal butchery technique. Barely.
That'd just mean that it was, like, efficient, right?
More
like,
or less.
they knew where the hat was
Yeah.
and took it out on purpose.
More or less. Anything else? We have a lot of space to work with here. I am scared about the amount of stuff that we're gonna find. We got a map.
Very nice in Mind Palace.
Yeah.
I need a Mind Palace. Why have you got a magazine about pistols in your Mind Palace? On the wine shelf? Also, she might be getting wine drunk. Just a warning.
Alan trying to write himself into a character. See, it's normal, actually, for everyone to get wine drunk all the time.
What do you mean she's just self-insert? She's a lady. I'm immune to that criticism now.
That's a deer. What is that? That's a Sam?
Sam?
And that's Saga over there, I think. Or is that her daughter? That looks like a child. Devo, you absolute butthole. Okay. I think we can leave now.
I see you're
Okay.
already
Whoa!
hard at work, Anderson. Close to cracking it?
We're just getting started.
Visiting
Let's
my
head down
house
the
does
hill
not
to the
pause the
crime
game,
scene.
so be mindful of nearby threats. Understood.
Don't go to the Mind Palace if you're in a fight.
Gives me a headache. There's too much sky.
I think Alex Guess is going to be very useful with working out who did it. Guess.
Do you think that's because he's too busy thinking about Baghdad and G-strings?
Baghdad, jeez.
Hey, Casey. You putting me in charge. Why
What's up
now?
here?
Look, Anderson, you're a better detective than I am. You've cracked cases that had the rest of us
He is on the
baffled.
radio now.
I don't want to slow you down.
Are you thinking of retiring? You know what happens to cops who say this is their last case.
Mm-hmm. Real funny, Anderson.
We need a key. Sorry, I am still just kind of like floored at how pretty this is.
Very nice.
Okay. Alex is still following. Starting fires is prohibited. Do not feed the wildlife. And leave no trace. I have to run everywhere. I'm sorry.
Stairs are out. You okay to jump down?
I'm not.
You're not what?
Oh, okay, jump down.
Jeez.
He's
You're...
getting too old for this shit. His knees aren't what they used to be.
Oh, okay. I see. There's our sign subtitles.
Nice.
It's Mirror Peak. The mighty mountain in the distance is no
I
other
like
than
the sign subtitles. They're a lot easier to read than the actual sign.
right. The iconic landmark overlooking Cauldron Lake. From the right angle, its beauty will be reflected on the calm surface of the lake, mirrored in all of its inverted glory. Also, just appreciate that they're not like super obtrusive.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love and need subtitles, sometimes it covers up stuff that I want to look at. Can't see anything down there. I'm sure it's fine. Cauldron Lake Campground.
Welcome.
What if we just abandon Alex?
I think I saw something. It'll only
Did
take
we?
a minute.
I'll wait here.
Okay. Oh,
Oh, okay. We're not actually.
guess we didn't see anything actually.
Changed out.
Unless. What's that? Can I do anything with this? You've taken a thing out. Your flashlight is very weak right now.
Really bad thought. I'm not gonna kill the monsters.
What's here? Waterfalls. Our beat of nature will revive the spirit as it does the surrounding nature. Churning, grinding waters at the bottom of the falls resemble a mortar and pestle, quite like the one the Witch of Cauldron Lake is able to have used to travel through the night sky. You travel with the mortar and pestle, man?
Must. Just sitting on a tiny cup,
Is that a
rowing with the.
kid's lunchbox? And Alex,
Which
Casey
one's the
movie
mortar and which
lunchbox.
one's the pestle?
Casey hates the endless jokes about
Oh, that's a
coincidentally
good
having the
question.
same name as a fake detective.
The
Oh,
bowl
okay.
is the
He
mortar,
hates those cheesy crime books,
I think.
but he really hates
I
the
have no
movies.
idea.
Pestle is the same. Probably.
Maybe.
They were talking about how Alex was always joking about having the same name as the Alan Wake Max Payne character.
My dad used to say when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Not sure where the tough get going to, but maybe you'll find it inspiring. I got manuscript fragments. used to upgrade weapons in the Mind Place.
Oh, is it a mind place, not a mind palace?
Oh, I only have 2. Never mind. Okay. Get out of here. I mean, it was saying Mind Palace Technique, but Saga has to be different and call it the Mind Place instead.
Did you get lost, Anderson?
Not a bad place to get murdered.
If getting back to nature is your thing.
Oh, but man didn't seem to be having a good time.
No. He was having a
Damn.
distinctly bad
Should have brought
time.
an umbrella.
I like the rain. The only thing around here that feels like home.
You think the local law had the sense to put up a tarp?
Why is he so just dramatic about everything?
Murder site. I did not want to swap. No, sure not, Catherine. Try explaining it one more time. How much clearer can I make it, Mulligan?
I'll look around. See you in a bit.
Take your time.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Can't go any further. Water's too deep.
Shoes. Never mind. He's okay with that, actually.
Wow, she is willing to go pretty far in there, huh?
Yeah?
But I think there's a thing. I think these just denote a secret nearby. Maybe. Possibly? Do you wanna...
More bits. Remind them.
Alright, maybe we come back later.
Need more minds.
Give me the mind scraps. Or... Okay.
The battery?
Batteries. How do I get to... Not here. My inventory?
Huh. Good question.
It's not I. Oh, didn't mean to hit that one.
Oh, we might have been in the... Sorry, there were a gun thing and a...
Oh.
No. Weird.
Okay. Yeah, I know I can quick access my map. That's how I got there. Fuck off. Tutorials, you're not being particularly helpful right now, buddies. What's up here? Hut. Witch's hut. Here lived the Witch of Cauldron Lake. Beware, her spirit may still haunt this place. Okay, but can we go in? Wow!
Punch the fucking door.
Okay, it's a better flashlight than I thought. Oh. Just gonna kick all of that around. It's fine, I'm sure. Is there anything in here? Doesn't seem like it.
Chad's over there.
Yeah.
You get turned into a frog.
Good. I love frogs. It's my favorite, actually. Over here. Realize I'm like not doing anything that they want me to do, but you know,
That's fine.
what do you want?
We have a unconventional crime solving technique.
It's true. Alright. Friday. Midge told me today that her family's moving away. This sucks. I haven't even told her that I like her yet. What's the point anymore? Said her parents want to get get better jobs and get her to a better school in a big city. Guess that's fair. Who wants to stay in Bright fucking Falls? Sunday. So I told her. She said thanks. Fucking kill me. Monday. Snuck out last night again. Went to the big house by the lake instead of just watching it from here like I always do. Instead of just sitting around like I always do. Screw that! Anyway, something weird is going on down there. Gonna find out what. Gonna go back to there tomorrow with better gear. I bet I can find a way inside the building. Take some photos. It's gonna be epic.
Not epic.
Wowie, kiddo.
Don't use epic. I'll jump scare you.
Gonna be epic. Turn this off, please. Put it away.
A
Put it away.
lunchbox again. Who's
Oh.
leaving these out here?
I know things can get a little crazy around here, but if you're ever feeling scared, just remember that Alan is watching over us. Fuck off,
Little
Alan.
hats on Alan.
Horrible.
We love Alan. Who doesn't love Alan?
Let me tell ya. Who doesn't? Put your fucking flashlight away. Where is Big House?
Here's a list of all the people who do not love Alan. 1. Alan's wife. 2.
that detective from the first game.
3. Everyone else.
I guess we can go back to Alex. He's been so patient with us so far. Where am I? Where am I going? Oh, I've like wandered way the fuck off. But
Quite
consider,
less.
right? Consider, what if instead of going to the murder site, we go to the witch's ladle? Am I heading the right way? No, but that's fine. It's away from the crime scene.
Yeah. We'll get the body out of the tree tomorrow.
Yeah! Witchfinder Station. I heard someone yell. Oh, I have like an eyelash or something in my eye. Sorry. Okay, that's better. This is fine. I found the witch's ladle. Oh, it's her!
Yeah. The lady with a hole in her chest for a hat today.
Yeah.
Probably to do with the recent incidences, actually, when you think about it.
Nah, it's fine. There's no mystery in Cauldron Lake being named after its cauldron shape, and yet there are many mysterious stories about the lake. It being a gloomy doorway to the underworld, or of a witch whose cauldron the lake really was. The legend tells that when the affections of a local sheriff went unanswered, he accused the lady in question of having bewitched him. She was drowned, but her dropped ladle grew into a strange tree named Witch's Ladle. The woman returned to avenge her wrongdoers. If she was not a witch before, she was one now. Wow.
Probably was, though, if she turned the ladle into a tree and then came back from the dead to wreak vengeance.
Maybe. Possibly. She killed the sheriff, drowning him in the lake. Then she took out his heart and locked it in a box. With the heart, she would summon him from the lake to exact revenge on her behalf. Or so the legend goes. Hi, lady. Can we do like a little photo op here? Just like stick my head through the hole.
We need Sam.
Sam
I like
Ocean!
this. Yeah, Sam Ocean.
Come here, buddy. Oh.
Bring your
Oh!
camera. That is a big one.
Big tree. What's inside?
Small tree.
Why does it sound like this? Hey! Hey!
There's clearly a note there.
Hey, game?
Game? There's a note there.
Right there.
I want to read the note.
I can see that there are words on it. You have to let me pick it up. Fuck off.
And later they're gonna come back and be like, "Oh, I never saw this."
Wow,
before.
there's a
Weird.
note here.
That's the thing.
I'm just gonna scream about it. Because, yeah, I saw it.
Stood on it and yelled.
Ah! Alright. Excuse me? I guess we can go to the crime scene now. I suppose.
Yeah.
Dramatic change in lighting. Alright. More map. More stuff. Dumpster. Consider. What if we went this way instead?
I'm gonna run slowly real quick now that the cat's off.
Do it. I'm just gonna keep wandering around where I'm not supposed to. Ooh, tent.
Camera, go.
We've got quite a few things over here, actually. How do you like the knitting, hero? I made it just for you. Thanks, Lunchbox. UFOs and you. The ultimate guide to spotting unidentified flying objects. Writing this down in case it happens again and I forget. Got that feeling again. Hit me suddenly at 1:15 a.m. after I'd finished my AMA on the porch of the trailer. Got in the car and drove, chasing it. Where did he go? There it is. Starry night, not much moon. As expected, it led me past Bright Falls to Cauldron Lake. Tried to find the right spot, the right emotion, the right thought. The combination to have it all aligned to make it happen. Terrified it would. It didn't. Not this time. Frustrated but relieved. I scan the skies for shapes, the objects. Nothing. But when I blink repeatedly, I think I saw the afterimage of an octahedron. Faded fast. When I got ready to drive back, I felt someone watching me. Here, but not here. It's him. I know it is. Does he know I'm getting close? I'm on the right track. I was right to come to Bright Falls. Everyone just, like, obsessed with Alan. Is that what's happening here?
Alan's fan club's convening.
Can absolutely tell that this is a fictional story written by Alan, if that's the case.
Is it the voice actor for Max Payne who is using some, like, verse here?
That's, I was wondering that earlier.
Because he does sound a bit like... It's either him or someone doing an impression
Doing an
of
impression,
him, right?
yeah. Absolutely.
I still think he might be the fictional
Wonder what's
character.
inside. I should take a look around for a way to open this thing.
Follow these steps. Wash your hands. Take the chicken out of the fridge. Take a nap.
If it's Alan writing the story, absolutely
A
would
creepy
be the
twig
same character.
sculpture.
But the character died in his last book.
Yeah, but he could just retcon that.
Yeah, he was pretending.
Exactly.
He faked his death so he could catch the real criminals.
Absolutely.
How often does, like, every... like... pulp detective die?
Hey there, Mr.
Like,
Dear.
come on.
At least
remind me of a dream I
3
had.
times.
Yeah.
At minimum. We got here. I have to wash hands. Where's the symbol for at the sink? Because this is where I would wash my hands. Unless it's in the bathroom.
I see we're in the sink, sorry. I thought you'd seen a little circle with a dot. Oh no, that's the drain.
Wash hands. 2 triangles. In inverse triangles.
Up triangle and down triangle.
Yeah, and then take chicken out of fridge. Okay.
I'll move all my stuff when you think that. Yeah.
Let me just sneak that out. And now we have a piece of paper to write things down on.
Triangles.
So it was... Right. The triangles that are next to each other and upside down. The ones that are touching tops.
Now
And
there's
then
one symbol near the...
lots of symbols, but I don't remember what the last one was. Take a nap. Bed.
Yeah.
Not bed.
There is in fact a symbol on everything.
Yeah. Okay, and then sideways triangles. Okay. Oh, what's this? Let this be a warning to you, fellow trespassers. Say the lake is a caldera, something formed by an erupting volcano, or the sinkholes it leaves in its wake. What if that's not true? What if it's something else? Something less natural and much more man-made. Intentional. I say the lake's not formed, it's designed. And it has a purpose. The lake is a hiding place. Beneath the calm surface lies a secret machinery ready to be activated at the press of a button. And the people with the button? They're in that big house by the lake. Preparing. I know it. First drawing. Waterline. Real caldera is made from a volcano. Lava! Second drawing. Waterline. Engineered structures. Strange machines? Top one is the real caldera. The bottom one is the supposed
Secret volcano lab.
I mean, be a great place for an evil villain.
Yeah. Where I'm gonna go when I go fight James Bond with Evo.
Perfect. Let's do our silly.
No. Oh, no, it's that one. It's just 100. One after that, I thought. Sorry.
Yeah, they're very tiny, is the thing.
Yeah.
That one. And then that one. Okay. Fuck off!
Why will this not leave?
Don't take anything if you aren't one of the trees. Well, my name is a tree. Does that count?
Me too. I'm spruce.
There we go. So I think it's fine, actually, if we take them.
Let me try muting the overlay in the. Sorry.
Well, we can try. I was just gonna
really
give up
wanted
on
to
it because I'm
show-
fucking done with it. There it is. Get out of here.
Yeah.
We'll still see. Hi, Wanderer. Which voice mod do you want? Also, Sam.
Oh geez.
Hi IRL friend Fruity and friend Kaysh.
Oh god,
Hi,
there's everyone
friend
here.
Sam.
Sorry, there's a lot happening.
Thornton.
Okay, I need them to stop talking. Sam, thank you for the sub. How are you doing, pal? And Wanderer, which long time no see. Which voice mod would you like? Get to hear both Fruity and me with it on now.
Oh,
This is
no.
gonna be interesting. How's everyone doing? I can do one at random if you would rather. That is also an option.
Don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah. But also, you did do the redeem, so, you know.
You don't have to be specific. You can just say a vibe you want.
Yeah! We have lots of options. Sorry, I have another eyelash in my eye again. It fucking sucks. Ugh. Oh, jeez! I'm excited!
Epic Games jump scares that do it.
Yeah, that's the scariest part so far. TBH. But yeah, if you don't have a voice mod in mind, probably just pick one at random. You get to see how this works now.
Oh.
That's the one it always defaults to. We hear that
Why
one
does
a
it
lot.
default to one in the middle?
I don't fucking know. It just does. It could be big. It's been a minute since I've been big.
Maybe Big K?
It could be big Kaysh. Big
Kayshurrr and Fruity. I don't know what big
Makes
sounds
sense.
like. Maybe we'll have to listen back. I'm not working for the feds. I am the feds. Okay, I've got the 5-minute timer started. Can y'all hear the voice change? Did it actually activate? Oh yeah. Help from this end. Yeah. Are we big? Are we big? Do we sound big now? We big now? They're big now? I'm gonna see
I
what's
take it.
working.
Yeah, that's me.
What time is
Oh, they
it?
told me you were coming the
Yeah.
other way.
Well, that is...
Okay,
Okay, it does work. Perfect.
King was a crime. We found him on the table.
Ding dong.
And we didn't touch
Oh,
nothing.
oh, Jesus. A throne contribution from
for-
Sam
for-
for the Ludwig
Let's
figure.
start by
Thank you,
examining it, Mr. Bond.
Sam.
Does this fit the MO of the previous murders?
Sam, you're great and I love you. How are you doing?
Wander,
Wander, how are you?
Body is
How are
positioned on
y'all?
the table.
Tommy, put your
Ritualistic.
flashlight away. Oh wait, there's a heart. I found it. I found the heart. Case set. Solved. Case solved.
Put
it back in. He's good to go. He'll be fine. What am I doing? C allows Saga to see active clues. The image can be selected with a little click and place it on the keyboard. Okay, great.
Another body turns up just as we arrive in town.
Whoa! Everything is so loud.
Coincidence?
Saga is very quiet, though, is the thing. So can I turn the voices up? Hold on. Their voices. Right? Okay, we have new line of investigation happening. When a key image is placed, it will prompt a new question. Objectives reviewable of the case board and your goals. Oh my god, don't. Great, I have to investigate the crime scene. Perfect. Had no idea that that was a thing. Wowie. Alright, I'm sorry, we're just gonna keep fucking around with the settings. Forever. I think. Audio. Dialogue volume. Why can I? This one goes to 11. Honestly. Do that. Weird. Wild. Can I look at you?
The killer left the heart right next to the body. Bruising on the wrist from the cargo straps holding him down.
Cargo straps, you say?
Incised stab wound.
Chest
cut open. Heart removed.
Is there anything else? Does not look like it. Alright. Oops, not what I wanted to do. You want me to go back to my case board? Consistent load up. Yeah. Bruising indicates victim was alive or restrained, matches other cases. Right, okay, hold on. Go wherever you want, Matt. It's fine. Cool. Heart was moved, but then left on the table near the body. Was this murder interrupted?
No.
What do you mean, no? No, murder wasn't interrupted. What do you mean? Your outlandish theories.
That's it. Heart removed from chest.
Was I connecting it to the consistent thing? Is that how that was working?
But this time the heart and the straps were left behind. More clues to work with.
I'm assuming that's what it was. I was just putting it in weird places. We'll find out next time. Clues have resolved the open question and unlocked its deduction. As you advance the investigation, new questions will be unlocked. Updating your goals. Great. Okay. Yeah, no, I know how to check my goals. You've already told me how to do that game. Oh my god, stop giving me useless tutorials. I need to talk to someone. I need to find some evidence. Wish I could, you know, put these in different places, though. That'd be lovely. Yeah.
Who is our
You know,
victim?
it's fine.
Who killed him? Need to find more clues. A large amount of blood on the table.
Well, yeah, he has a hole in his chest.
I think a lot of it tends to go to the hat, so if that's not there, it just kind of falls out.
Just spilling your blood everywhere. We'll talk to that man in a minute. What's this?
Someone was drinking beer. They spent time here.
We only drink wine.
Waiting.
We're uninterested in this.
Someone left in a
What's this,
hurry.
though?
Knocked the tripod over.
Were we recording
Was it
it?
for a camera?
Well, that is usually what you use a tripod for. That is 5 minutes. Put the voice mod. Everything's just...
That scare me is the thing today, I think.
It's small again.
We are small again. Alright. Thank you, Wanderer, for the redeem.
Multiple people were here.
I like that they've already,
Multiple
like, marked
killers.
where all the evidence is.
Yeah.
Makes my job so much easier.
Had to.
That's leaving the scene.
How many sets of footprints is that, lady? I will respect you if you can't just tell me off the top.
At least 3. Because this one's a distinct one, the one that her foot is kind of on.
Oh.
And then this one. Trying to like aim her foot on anything.
3 different distinct directions of foot traffic here.
Yeah. This one is also different. I know a thing or two.
You know about feet?
I know about. I am a feet knower.
Any idea who the victim is?
Oh, I sure do. His name is Nightingale. He was FBI.
Oh!
He came to town about 13
dang.
years ago.
Right.
I haven't heard a word about him since. Well,
I
until now.
did
Nightingale.
wonder.
Robert Nightingale?
Oh, yes. You
Didn't he
probably knew
die?
him. Brothers in arms.
I thought at the end he was
Oh,
just like
and
inside the
sisters.
building, just like staring out at everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess can we?
He definitely got.
Yeah. Victim. There we go. Okay, yeah, we do drag it on to the question.
Adam.
No one's heard from this guy in 13 years. Why surface now? Where's he been? Probably been in Shadow Hell with Alan. We'll put that with the killers, the multiple sets of footprints. Same with the heavy blood splatter.
Boot prints, indicating multiple killers. Quite the party.
Don't know that I would describe it as party. These are for
Later.
later. Alright. Hey, you knew the victim?
So you knew our victim.
Well, I didn't recognize him in his current state. But yeah, I ran into him a
Less
few
blue
times
on
at
it.
Quantico. Never worked any cases together. After his partner got killed in the field, he went off the deep end. Got the boot pretty quick after that.
Yeah, okay, I understand that that's where Mind Palace stuff
So
goes.
what happened to Nightingale after the Bureau let him go?
I only know the rumors. Depression led to booze, booze led to paranoia. He got some wild ideas in his head, chased ghosts until he fell off the map. Guess he ended up here,
I bet there's more to that story.
but no happy ending.
So he's been missing since
Nightingale
2010?
went missing 13 years ago. 2010.
The same as
I'm guessing
all the other
2010 was
victims.
when Alan Wake
Certainly
1
fits the
happened.
pattern.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder what was going on that year.
That would track.
Probably something this town wants to forget.
Okay. Well, let me just go back in here. And
I don't know the other ones, but we did definitely see that this guy got
Robert
got
Nightingale,
got
ex-FBI.
Shadow of
Canterbury Falls
Man
13 years ago.
got.
tripod shows premeditated. Fear shows premeditated.
They planned for the murder to happen here, passing the time with equipment ready.
Feel like that's
They were waiting for him.
that wasn't really much of a
But
question,
why Nightingale?
Yeah.
considering
He's been missing for
They was,
13
like,
years.
strapped
Belted to
down.
a table and had his hat
Yeah.
ritualistically removed.
Yeah. I mean, I guess better to be thorough, but
My guess
Profiling.
would have definitely been
Get into the
unpremeditated.
subject. See what they saw. Feel what they felt. Use whatever I know about them to guide my intuition to a revelation. Piece it
okay.
together.
Let's profile, I guess. What are we doing? I mean, it's
Nightingale
both, right?
was chosen as the victim. Why?
Flick the switch, it goes click. Lights are off. But somebody's home. Somebody's home.
This wasn't some random act of violence. This was a ritual. And Nightingale a component. They didn't see him as a person. More like a container for something. Agent Nightingale has been MIA for 13 years. How did he end up here?
Up from the lake that's not a lake.
It's an ocean.
It's dark.
Sorry, we're just gonna keep doing that the whole game.
You are not allowed in the lake until he says otherwise.
Robert Nightingale came from the lake before his murder.
I mean, how did you get this information?
Are you just listening to the weird guy?
Seems not great.
I don't think I trust the weird guy.
It's a choice. I can feel that Nightingale came from the lake.
Just sensed it.
What does that mean? Got our Alex Casey lunchboxes and our Culture Lake murders. Great. Can I do something with these?
Finding a Casey movie lunchbox out here can't be a coincidence.
Or it can if it's a
Jesus,
really...
movie now.
Oh no. I mean, they've had 13 years to do stuff. I thought I heard a cat on the counter. I did not. It's fine. Excuse me, Light, you're kind of in the way. Cauldron Lake area? Who left these? I mean, these all go in the Cauldron Lake area, right? Because of where they were found. That one's found at the witch's hut. And that one was found at the Cauldron Lake. The writer of the note is leaving these to inspire someone. Are the really for me?
Are they really?
Note inside mentions making knitting just for me. How do they know I knit? Or maybe just a coincidence. Note inside mentions Alan. Alan Wake? What the hell are these?
The lake is connected to Nightingale somehow. Casey, let's take a look down by the lake. Lead the way.
Sounds good. This way, right?
Right.
Okay, well, I'll just wait here.
Good. Great. Perfect. Don't go anywhere.
This one of your hunches, Anderson? Did
That's
something
really
happen
how
at
you
the lake?
identify
I think
that.
Nightingale came up from that direction. From the lake. Probably looking for shelter. Safety. They were waiting for him.
When you're ready, I'd
Not
love to hear what you put
communism.
together so
Love
far.
getting it.
Sure. It's not that complicated. Nightingale was out in the woods alone at night, possibly nude. The killers knew he was
Possibly
there,
nude.
ambushed him, dragged him to the campgrounds, strapped him to the
100%
table, cut his
Oh
heart
my
out.
god.
Wow!
But then they were
Look,
interrupted
there's
by
a
those witnesses
thing
that were
here.
Unbelievable.
The tracks,
First,
barefoot. Nightingales?
why are
They
they
come out from under
like
the
that
boulder.
though?
Makes no sense.
Huh.
I didn't know trees got that big.
They do.
There's a piece of paper on the ground.
Alex, you would know this if you ever went outside.
He's used to the mean streets of New York City.
That's a
So-
manuscript.
Rounding up gangsters. That is a manuscript.
It's too wiggly. I can't
Yeah,
read
it
it.
goes blurry when you look at it.
It's fine. Maybe we'll read it now.
A page full of text on one side. Not a
Why are we
printout.
touching everything without
Written
gloves?
with a typewriter. Old school. Lines scratched out and edits added with a pen.
Like a manuscript. Page of a story. The killer left a message.
It's for us. The text is about us. The victim was one of their own. FBI Special Agent Robert Nightingale. And then there was the page they found. The first step down into terrifying depths.
Reading
Reading
the words.
the
These words felt like a message.
Felt like a message.
Someone knew they were here. Someone playing a game with them. An
I
invitation.
bet Alan is even more
could
stinky
they
just
not
because,
accept?
like, there can't be any showers in like, the
Yeah.
dark place, right?
There's no showers in the Shadow Realm.
Someone's
That'll be
been watching
stinky.
us.
Playing
Yes!
sick
It
games
worked!
with us.
You were
Beautiful.
right. This is right up my alley. Nightingale came this way. Either he
Stuff
dropped
came
this
up on the
page,
screen, but I'm not deaf.
or the killers left it for us.
I'm fine with them coming up on the screen. I just need them to
I
not
should profile
yell.
Nightingale about this page.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I need. Oops, wrong place.
We found a page in the woods. A story about these events. What is Nightingale's role in this?
I carry his words close to my chest now. Inside, the awful truth. You must dig it out.
Something was put inside him. In his chest. I must find out what.
Gotta shove our hand in a man's chest, understood.
The red seeds.
I mean, this is what they just read, right? How could they not accept the sheer audacity of this impossible mystery presented to them? Right. We'll read all the other ones if they don't read them out loud. We have manuscript pages. Got our case board. Map. Weapon upgrades. Profiling. That is everything that's in here.
I do really like the Mini Plus.
Yeah, it's cool. Where do they want us to go? Oh my god.
Why did you go to the lake at the way spot? By the giant tree?
Want me to do something more here? Because I've profiled. What is this?
This mug always cheers me up.
Not the worst, Mom. That's a horrible mug.
Yeah.
Ma'am.
11 remaining.
What?
If only the rest of the Bureau knew what a softy Casey is. Miss you, kiddo. I'll be home soon.
I don't think we're going home.
Remaining.
11 remaining.
Okay.
Mom may be gone, but whenever I read this, I feel like she's still here.
Saga, for what it's worth, I think it's important that Logan grows up seeing you do what you love, what you're great at. That will teach her so much. There'll be times like this when you question your choices, your competence, even your own sanity. When things get dark, remember to trust and love yourself as much as your family does. You won't be perfect, but I know you'll be amazing. Love you always, Mom. I can't run in here, and I hate that. There's something more that I can do here. Yes. Okay. Oh, yeah, we have a lot, actually. Victim came from? He's the barefoot thing, and the trail is gone cold.
I think he came from the lake. But his tracks make no sense.
Too many unknowns. Doesn't make sense. Asking wrong questions?
We probably have to go back and get the thing out of Nightingale Hall.
Yeah. Need to examine the body properly. Alright.
Casey, I think something's been put inside Nightingale's body. Let's tell the deputies to get the body to the town morgue.
Okay.
Whoever wrote that page made sure it read like a story. Like a scene from a thriller.
I hate all of it.
You and me both, Alex.
I believe it.
But what's the purpose? They're twisting events to create their own narrative. To do what? Entertain some fantasy? Projecting their desires? Are we characters or the audience? Witnesses to their design?
Made it back. Good.
All the above?
It's all about control. Deciding what happens.
Don't talk about
who.
control to me.
Don't let it drag you in.
Too late. I'm already hooked. I need the next chapter.
I hope you didn't get stuck in any of those big puddles. Crazy flooding down there, huh? Just like I said.
Okay, well, get that body
Deputy.
back to town.
I want the body taken back to town for a proper examination ASAP.
Well, sure, but the coroner won't be back in
Oh,
town
Deer
for another
Fest.
week after Deerfest.
Not a
Always
problem.
Deerfest.
I'll do it
Always
myself.
Deer
And
Fest.
Sheriff Breaker called to say he's got the Bookers at the Oh Dear Diner in town. Oh, and I've got a key to the gate. It's a shortcut back to the parking lot just up the hill.
You wanna give that to me? Thanks. It's the shortcut key.
Thanks. Let's get the car, drive to Bright Falls, and talk to these witnesses, the Bookers.
At The diner, right? I could use a cup of coffee.
Let's try that shortcut the deputy mentioned.
Damn fine
Sounds
cup
good.
of coffee. Can you... Oh, weird, okay.
Seems like a
I
nice
thought that
town
was
so
telling
far.
me that that's what it was
Produce aside.
using, not that I needed to
Pretty
click on
woods.
it.
Cute lodge we got set up in.
This is fine.
We should go for a hike if we get a chance.
Now you're just being mean, Anderson.
Deputies aren't exactly up to the task, but hopefully the sheriff will be more helpful.
Not a surprise about the deputies. Doubt they see much stuff this gruesome.
This. No entry. Do not touch. I'm gonna touch it. What's up here?
There's another lunchbox.
Perfect. We're all in this together, hero. Have a heroic day.
Gee.
Thanks. Right. It's me. I'm hero. Whoop. Sorry, Alex.
Can't fit the clues all together yet.
Any
Heart removed,
like
tripod,
drug-induced
tracks
nightmare
leading
so
to a
bad
dead
that
end.
he starts thinking he's either a character in a graphic novel or a video game.
Record a snuff film?
maybe.
Oh, jeez.
And why take out his heart just to throw it away?
I like see all the weapon icons in his
wanna
peripheral
walk around
vision.
for a
And
minute.
time keeps slowing down to show off his moves.
Oh, God. Bad trip.
Funny thing about it, in that moment, it was the most horrible thing I could possibly imagine.
Poor Max.
I'm gonna go
Such
check
a
something
character
out.
in a novel.
Be right back.
Got it.
It's not even graphic.
Finally made my way to Cauldron Lake. The fence was easy to climb over with the proper gear and skills, which I thankfully possess. Next goal, spotting the rare and elusive orange-crowned warbler. A little late in the season, but hopefully I can catch it before it begins its journey south. Noticed intriguing behavior in the surrounding common bird life. They seem to be alarmed and swarm around the lake. No birds of prey nearby. There are some strange sounds carried on the wind, however. Nothing I can recognize or explain. Getting a little concerned. Might have to find another spot, somewhere safer. Sounds are getting closer. Moved inland. Foliage is stunning. Must come back in fall. Had to stop and sketch this gorgeous vine maple. Just at the way the Methuselah's beard hangs off it. This is why trees are better than people.
Trees are better than people.
Facts. Speaking of people, saw some drunk guy staggering around the forest earlier, acting weird. Maybe drugs. Kept my distance. Should probably find another spot. So annoying! After I saw that weirdo guy, I decided to change spots again. Moved up the mountain a bit. Found a fantastic overlook to camp at. But I'm more interested in this Alaska onion grass. Invasive but edible, and surprisingly tasty. Started hearing wolves or wild dogs or something like 10 minutes ago. They sound wrong. Rabies? Want to leave, but the sun is going down and my stupid phone is dead. Gonna hide in the tent and hope they go away. Something's really not right about this place. I'm sure it's fine. I wouldn't worry about it.
A little wibbly here.
Just a little. It's fine, I'm sure. Oh, damn. Anything else?
Here we are. Let's drive back to town and meet the sheriff at the diner.
Do I get to drive, or is it driving automatically? I want to know if I get to be in a wiggly
I
car.
can't get that manuscript page out of my head.
You in the first game.
I've never seen it.
That's why I want it back.
Reach out so directly before.
Damn impressive work so far. With your technique, these hunches were moving fast.
I wasn't sure about taking a case so far from home,
Home of
but
the annual Deer
I'm
Fest.
thrilled to be here for this mystery.
Sog is actually excited about Deer Fest.
There's cans.
Need to swing by the lodge to
Don't
get
know
anything
if they
from the
can
field
see.
office?
I
No,
don't
I'm all
think they
set.
can.
I'll park there anyway. I want to walk to the diner, get a feel for the town.
Are they thermoses?
The thermoses are white.
Wine thermos. Sorry, I don't
The
think we
diner's
should be
just up the
dancing
waterfront.
in the middle
Shouldn't
of the
keep the
road.
sheriff and our witnesses waiting.
I smell coffee.
I think he knows he's dancing in the middle of the road. He probably thinks he's on a stage.
I'm gonna go check something out. Be right back.
Got
For
it.
those of you just tuning in, you're listening to the Pat Maine Radio Hour, brought to you by Davis Family Moose
Same
Jerky.
old man. Or
Think
a different
so.
old man?
What an eventful day
Sounds
here
like the
in
same old
Bright
man.
Falls. By now, we've all seen the FBI setting up shop in town.
That's us.
And I'm sure you're all asking the same question.
You really like
I
the
am. Did
Radio
they
Man in the
bring
first
all
one.
this
He's just
darn rain with
such a
them?
lovely old dude.
Deerfest is right around the corner, and we're all crossing our
Make
fingers
me
for
louder.
sunshine. So I
It's fine.
reached out to our top meteorologist for a weather update. She never responded, but I have her uncle Tapio on the line from Watery. Tapio, are you there?
Yes?
Great. And Tapio, what kind of weather can we expect today?
Rain.
That definitely seems to be on the menu. How about over the next week?
Also rain.
Right.
Good report.
Ran all the way
Any
down.
chance the sun will poke out in time for Deerfest?
No.
Deerfest is coming, rain or shine. And that parade lineup is looking dandy as ever.
Yes, I like this parade because they're one float in the shape of a swan.
Good float.
Long neck and everything. A very large swan.
So you're a fan of swans.
No.
Right, well, that's our time. We'll be right back after this next song by the rock and roll sensation, National Nightmare.
Alright. Hey, did you know this is flooded?
Yeah, maybe flooded.
My god. What are you doing? You been trying to take a picture this whole time, bud? Hey, your phone's off. No, it's not. You're not in the camera app, though.
Yeah, it's not in any app.
It's on the main screen.
Would be really cool if you could put
Let's
That's so close to the edge.
do a little shove. I don't have to look around in every corner, but also consider, what if I do?
Wait,
We just looked around at
I
everything.
mean, we've got lunchboxes to find.
It's true. I don't know who's writing these notes in lunch boxes.
Who's writing this one? Upgrade our weapons.
What do we have here? Jaywalking costs lives! Somebody's missing a cat and a dog? Kids of all
Water
ages.
metal detector and scuba deer.
Oh! Do we have everything ready for Deerfest? Got a checklist here to make sure that we do.
Flying safety and regulation.
What you need to know before you set sail. Jesus Christ, son!
Just
There's one gear.
days.
Kick the door in like a maniac.
Honestly!
Few more days.
Hey, how are you doing?
Give me that map.
Oh, it's the weird bear statue that's everywhere in the first game.
Yeah!
Same statue. Dancing man.
What are you dancing to, buddy? Oh, he's making his own music, I hear.
Look at that confidence, though. He realizes someone's come in. And it's just staring at him, and he just keeps going.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Oh, noises.
I'd melt from embarrassment, but not that guy.
He thrives on it. What are you doing?
Take it easy.
Okay.
I'll be back in a second.
Roger.
Dear.
Rest easy, buddy.
10 left.
Is that what it's counting?
I have no idea.
Oh!
Oh. Oh.
Oh.
I'm just thinking real hard about our actual when we go to the mine place. It's like nicer there and roomier and it is the same room.
Can't see outside though. Okay, hold on. I need to know if Deer has anything to say.
10 remaining.
10 remaining.
It is. We do have to. I have to pet every deer that we come across now. Confirmed. All right. Good for you guys. Still dancing. What's over here? Everyone's just looking at their phone.
No one knows how to use them. Like alien technology.
Oh. Oh, it's just a kitchen.
Is it suspicious?
I mean, everything's suspicious, if you ask me. Whose room is this? Well, it's one of our rooms. It's either Alex's or my room.
Sorry. Just peeking.
Sorry, my guy.
Don't mind us.
I'm sorry that I'm busting through every single door.
Sorry I'm like this.
Cauldron Lake, look into news and rumors, focus on 2010, cross-reference with old case files from New York City cult, similarities, commonalities, and methodology, part of a series. Find out name of good coffee from diner. Good priorities. Pistols. Oh. Oh, it's dust. Okay. I got scared that they were flies.
Yeah. You get a stinky agent penalty for that.
Can't see what's happening in here. Where's my flashlight?
It touches a bit better when it's actually dark.
Yeah. Alright. Do not disturb. Can't open that one.
At elbow, strike the door open if it says do not disturb.
It's true. Oh, that one's locked, so I can't bust through there. Tragic. Do not disturb.
I can't force it open.
I mean, you could.
We've seen you do that.
Anything else? There's not really anything else in here, huh? Can I come back here? Hi. You cool with this? He's cool with this.
He's having an emotional event over there.
Yeah, I should probably just leave him be. Instead of making his day worse.
Did you
What's
get
going on here?
lost, Anderson?
Hey!
Hi. It's true. We had to pet a deer, sir.
Just how much coffee have you had today, Charlie?
Don't know, don't care. How much have you had? Not enough. That's how much. Never enough coffee.
Come get percolated.
Rich, bittersweet nectar.
Getting
Get it in Coffee World. Get it where
Getting
you can.
percolated.
Get it now.
Jesus, Charlie.
Charlie's just pumped to be here.
Loves being coffee.
Here.
Not to toot my own horn, but I am pretty darn sure my, I mean our float We'll be the belle of the ball at this year's Deer Fest. Just a few more days. It's a nice
Swamp
looking
Ass
place to
City.
chat.
Yeah, who said Swamp Ass
This is
City?
my first Deer Fest,
I think it
so
might have
don't
been
know what to
Charlie.
expect, really.
Charlie,
It is Deer.
please never say Swamp Ass City. That's the name of my new band. Don't use it in vain.
Okay, sorry, there's a lot to look at around here. What are you doing?
Welcome to Bright Falls. It's nice to have you here. I got you both some coffee. Oh, it's Washington's finest.
This is suspicious. You should arrest them. Being weird in
I
an
think
alley.
I saw something.
Is it illegal to be in a shortcut key on that? That's a shame. Is it illegal to be in an alley being weird in a suit? Can we not do that?
Not without a license.
Oh my god.
Are we by the police station? Sorry, can you check the yard behind you? There is triangles on the wall over there.
Yeah, can't
Is the path through there to the back of the police station?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I recognize this street that Alan ran through.
You're outside the police station now because there's police cars packed everywhere, I'm guessing. I'm glad that they made the map consistent.
Yeah. Oh, there's a church. What's going on here? Yeah, I kind of just like want to look around for a minute. Cause it's neat.
It is neat.
And it is very much the same. Okay, reminder, all entrants for Deer Fest's annual deer hunt competition need to be registered by the 15th. In case you were wondering. Who said hello? Can't go in house. Tragic. Mayor Setter won't roll over on the issues. That's what I said, Saga.
Mayor Setter won't roll over on the issues.
Which ones?
The big issue. Everyone's talking about.
Zilch, was someone left to grow a surprise under their bed for housekeeping? They went nuts.
So, that's what all that screaming was about?
Either that,
Screaming?
or the couple on their honeymoon.
Ew. Don't be gross. Okay.
You guys said nothing ever happens in this town?
Wait, funeral home?
You weren't kidding.
Not on the surface, at least. Or in the
That's the
public eye.
lodge.
The diner's further down the street. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same place. It's cool.
Yeah. There's diner.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. Do you need anything?
Hello.
Pots and pans. Clay's Clam House. Utility.
I'll look around.
storages.
See you in a bit.
Take your time.
Don't think he really wants me to take my time is the thing, though. We'll look at all of that later.
Well, even through his interior monologue.
Nice to meet you, Sheriff. I'm set for coffee.
You know, I wouldn't say no to another.
I'm Agent Saga Anderson. This is Agent Alex Casey.
People away from the whiskey and
And let me just
painkillers.
say, I'm happy that you're here. Frankly, we could use the help.
Your deputies said you had a couple of witnesses here.
They made them sound like suspects.
Mulligan and Thornton are still on about that? No, the Bookers don't strike me as the murdering type, but you can decide for yourselves. They're just inside having coffee and pie to calm their nerves.
I'll see what they have to say.
Coffee and pie.
Casey, you compare notes with the sheriff.
Take your time.
Keep saying that to us.
We've looked through the case files you sent over, Sheriff. Have you had many people besides the known victims go missing?
Sure. But it's
Don't
slowed
look
down
around.
since Copper Lake was
Don't touch.
You have a guess.
Stupid blaming the coconuts.
Ah, jukebox is out of order. Poor old thing can only take so much of the same song being played over and over and over. I'm as big a fan of Coconut as the next person. But come on.
Dang, they remember too.
lights back there. Whose burg is this? You think Rose still works here?
Probably not. I wouldn't want to stay here if I got brain wibbled.
I
by
feel bad
Shadow
for these
Monster.
guys.
Yeah.
Angry Man?
I think maybe she just like moved away.
Yeah.
Teamwork makes the dream work. What a good poster. I feel more motivated already.
I need something to force this open.
I don't know. Don't know what happened after that. I'm pretty sure she did.
Wash your hands.
We don't have Alan Wake out here anymore, which is lovely.
They're very upset about what he's done to the town. And they had to get rid of any and all evidence. Is that a plushie? Is that a stuffed animal mug?
It's weird.
It's not for sale.
I want it.
Same. Okay, I should stop flashing people with my flashlight and maybe go talk to these people.
Stop flashing people. What the fuck?
Hello. Okay, are you the Bookers?
Excuse me. I'm Agent Saga Anderson. Are you the Bookers?
That's us. I'm Tammy, and he's Ed.
Hello, officer.
Just Saga is fine, Ed.
So, are we being charged with anything? Because if not, we'd love to get back to our hotel and decompress after what we saw. Take a bath, scream into pillows, that kind of thing.
We're not charging you.
Fair.
I just have a few questions. Nothing to stress about, okay?
I can't swap between the two. Okay.
What were you doing at Cauldron Lake last
Press
night?
1 or 2.
I'm
yeah,
alright.
but it's
True
weird.
crime. We're here from New York, doing some research on famous novelist Alan Wake, who went missing here. I was down at the lake, getting some details. Perfectly legal.
Tell me what you saw.
So what did you see in the woods?
This naked dude came out of the lake, and he was acting crazy, shouting weird shit at us. He must have been on something.
I don't think he was
Unless
he shouting?
Skinny dipping at dawn
I
is
don't
a
think
thing
you
around
are.
here.
We were just kind of
Then we
running.
heard shooting.
And
We ran into these psychos in deer masks. They were tearing into the naked guy with knives, like some kind of satanic cult.
Ed,
And then we
please.
bolted and called the cops.
What makes you say it was a cult?
The masks and knives aren't enough.
They were shouting, "Cult of the tree, the cult of the tree, cult of the tree."
I'll do it.
Oh, and then we found out. The whole thing was terrifying.
What'd you find?
That's all.
Hey, what'd you find? Hey, what'd you find?
So that's so cool.
The cult of the tree. What aren't the Bookers telling me?
I found
They're-
their necklace. The symbol is 2 triangles.
The cult wants
How
their
do you know
spruce tree
this?
back, Tammy.
Finders keepers, Ed. My publisher will want this on the cover.
Tammy found something. A necklace belonging to one of the cultists.
How do you know this? What weird powers do you have,
She's
Tammy?
just using magic.
Honestly!
This was built to hide what's there. They say the writer fell in the lake.
Private party. No trespassing.
My book has questions. Past the bolt cutters.
They broke in for the sake of Tammy's book. Nothing to do with a murder. They were telling the truth.
Yeah, I guess. I guess you could say that. Oh, we can listen to the things here. Cool.
Oh, nice.
Collectibles! Just because we have to every single time.
9 remaining.
Hey, I think you found
so you
something?
found something there, right? A necklace these cultists may have dropped.
Okay. Wow. How did you put that together?
It's evidence. You need to hand it over.
Just have weird magic powers. Don't worry about it.
Told you not to keep that thing to me.
Would be more fun if we had to do more detective stuff and had less wizard powers to just tell us the answers.
This could prove to be helpful.
Yeah.
Do me a favor.
Who's this?
Stick around town for now.
That's Rose!
Questions.
Why are you still here?
Dream of missing Deerfest. Oh God. Saga Anderson. As I live and breathe. I thought we'd never see you back here after that awful, awful thing happened to your baby girl. How are you?
Also, I did absolutely do
sorry.
the Leonardo DiCaprio lean forward and point thing to
I don't know what you're
everyone who
talking
could not see.
It's me, silly. Rose. You know me.
Think about it.
I don't think I do. And what horrible thing happened to my baby girl?
She drowned. Your daughter. That's so weird. You don't remember.
How do you know I have a daughter?
Oh, I know what this is. You're blocking out your traumatic memories. Happens on TV all the time.
No. You're mistaking me for someone else.
A lot of people called
If you
Saga.
say so.
Right? Is this the twist? Is the twist that Saga's daughter has actually been dead the whole time? Okay, we have to figure out what happened to Nightingale and go to the
All set.
sheriff's office.
My guys have Nightingale at the morgue if you're ready to go take a look.
I mean,
Let's
that'd be
go.
cool. Morgue!
Okay, see, I got a lead. Looks like we're
Yeah.
dealing with a cult. The cult of the tree.
Alex, catch up.
Oh,
Who else to keep the city
Fuck.
clean if not I?
Have you heard of this cult of the tree, Sheriff?
Only the urban legend.
Nope, keep walking
If you're
backwards
in the
because
woods
it's
at
very
night,
funny
call
to me.
will get you. That sort of thing.
Still faster than
We're not gonna find
everyone.
out You're the Grand Wizard or something, are we?
I played some D&D back in the day.
Sheriff. Looks like you have some guests.
Gross.
Ah, morning, Ted. Yeah, real important guests. Deerfest. Always draws a crowd, right?
Too true. More the merrier.
Okay,
Have a
do we
good
have
one,
to stop and
Sheriff.
talk to every Dick, Jane, and Tom on the street?
Probably, because, like,
Hey,
everyone
what do you know about that
knows
waitress from
everyone.
the diner?
Yeah.
Rose? Yeah, she's a bit of a space case. Always has been. Why? What'd she do now?
She kept saying that my daughter drowned. She even knew my name. It was all very weird.
Rose has a talent for saying the weirdest thing possible. But
Rose
let's
is
not
still
take
wiggling.
Rose has not recovered. Probably why she hasn't left.
Hey, boss. Corpse is downstairs ready to go.
Yep, in the morgue, all prepped.
I'd like to take a closer look as soon as possible. Lead the way, Sheriff.
Don't lead the way, I'm
I'll be
already
right
in.
with you,
Oh,
sir.
this is the Bright Falls Sheriff
Yep.
Station.
Just here
Anything
to
you
pay
need,
my
just let us know.
We appreciate the
Take the
support,
book.
Sheriff.
Kill the Joe, make some mo! This is the third time this week I come in for late shift and there's no coffee in the machine. You take the last cup, you brew a new batch!
Sir, some patience.
Chad, I hate to break it to you, but you need to have a face capable of growing a beard to make effective use of beard oil.
Dang.
Knew Marco's beard was too soft to be natural. What brand is he using, Lucy? Since my numerous friendly reminders about not having personal packages delivered to the station have gone unheeded, from here on out, if you've seen fit to send something to the station, I will see fit to announce to the station what you have received. Is it a federal offense to open someone else's mail? Yes, it is. Is it a personal offense that I need to share my desk space with your late-night impulse buys? Yes, it is! You have been warned, admin. P.S. Officer Lightfoot, your beard oil is ready for pickup. Front desk computer and admin email are not to be used for personal quarrels or other unofficial business. And remember to wash your coffee mugs. Annual event you've all been eagerly awaiting waiting is upon us again. The Community Outreach Barbecue. Now, I don't want to hear any grumbling. This is a valuable opportunity to connect with the community. Statistics shows that officers who are well integrated with communities They serve, see lower instances of violent crime in their precincts, are more effective in their policing, and have overall better mental wellness. This is for your benefit, so take it seriously. Community voted dunk tank victim this year will be, drumroll please, Deputy Thornton. Congratulations. Looks like everyone's getting retribution for that speed trap on 12C at last, eh? Friendly reminder that anyone out sick on the day's needs to provide a written doctor's note, or you'll be assigned night shift for 2 weeks. Anyone who replies all to complain about their assignment will be volunteering as the assistant for Officer Lightfoot's magic routine. Tim. Wowie. Give me that map. Anything else? Helmets save lives.
Oh, is there anyone who's won a competition on the wall in the hall behind you? Sorry. Posters everywhere and stuff.
Self-defense courses, protect your belongings, coffee cup mascot costume for $50. They're hiring.
So we share a morgue with the funeral home
And the
next door.
first one is doing like a competition of your name in the game, and there's a bunch of posters on that wall.
Agent?
Hello? Don't mind me, just looting.
As you know, the investigation is being taken over by the federal
Take that.
agents. Sheriff Breaker wants us to cooperate fully.
Aye, aye, ma'am.
I'm being serious, Nelson.
That all y'all have to say? What's in here? Records. Nothing that I can look at.
Not a lot of records.
What is this? What is this corner? Why is this here?
Posted them.
Oh, God.
Oh, Jesus, someone in
Oh! Sorry, sir. I know one of you stealing the toilet paper. Been counting them, and there's an entire roll missing every day from stock. Theft is taken seriously around here. It's a sheriff's station, for Pete's sake. One of these days, I'm gonna catch you red-handed, and you better believe you're getting thrown out. What a disgrace you are. What kind of nut counts toilet paper rolls? Sounds like you've got too much time on your hands.
What's the point being a cop if you don't get to do crimes and
Get
be
away with
allowed?
it?
Yeah.
Sir, I think you should probably, like...
Yeah, the sink needs some attention too. He knows his business. He's got this.
I can't force it open.
Oh!
And if he hasn't, the cops let him have a dirty sink.
innocent man.
Right. Sir? Person's just
I swear I didn't do anything.
staring at the corner.
They're a lying bunch of bastards.
Well, yeah, they're
You
cops.
believe me, right?
That's just what they do. Sorry, I thought I saw a thing that I could interact with there. Okay, down to the morgue. Very important that I loot everything.
Yeah. Look at I don't know. I really like the attention that they've... Oh. Cute.
Boys, why is it so dark down here?
Hey, do you also have torches?
They always cheer me up.
Oh, okay. Now we turn the lights on? I don't have a key for that. What's in here, though? Getting a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I need something to cut this.
Not Colt necklace. Can't Colt it with... Colt it? Cut it with a Colt necklace.
Like peel the triangles off and then use it as a blackface.
That locker was... He's jumping and being weird. What? Lockers are haunted.
Lockers haunted.
What is happening right now?
Ghost.
My goodness. What does it say? Oh, it's a self-defense course. Okay.
Like teaching you how to do a big kick.
What's in here?
It's not opening.
Tragic. Elevator broke? Y'all really need more lights down here.
Let's take a look at outpatient.
Yeah, it's almost.
This is
I'll start with the external inspection.
a bad place to do a work.
Adds to the ambience, but someone is gonna like trip off or something.
Like this! What is this doing here? I need to talk to whoever's in charge of this morgue. I got some words. You need to close these. If you're not using them, you have to close them.
How do you know which ones have guys?
Can't be opened on this side.
How do you know which ones are occupied?
Because you have these little tags on them that'll have the information about the patient in
Yeah,
it.
but you can't see the words on them because it's too fucking dark.
True. Like how they have put the heart in a little container.
What was the cause of death?
Let me in
What
there.
other
Oh, I guess I'll
clues?
look at everything first.
I mean, I got a guess as to the cause of death.
This looks like text. A tattoo?
Nightingale didn't strike me as a
Yes,
tattoo guy.
Actually, Jack.
The body shows signs of being submerged in water post-mortem. It doesn't add up. There's writing on here.
On the heart?
Can't make it out.
Right.
I do kind of see it.
How'd they manage that?
Aha. They did leave something inside his chest.
Okay, can I get it out? No, you want me to go to the case board first. Alright.
9 remaining.
I was hoping she would pet it again. That's fine.
Going in on like the initial exam.
Yeah?
Time to see what Nightingale's body can tell us.
Okay. Let's...
Oh.
I was gonna be very upset if I couldn't use any of these. Learned a lot from the body. He's got defensive wounds and bruising. Apparently he's bloated like he's been in water.
That's not right.
Why is such a lumpy lad?
Oh, that's not cause of death. Smudge text under victim's skin.
That might unlock after we do this one.
But then wouldn't it say... What am I doing here?
Oh, okay.
It would say for later or whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Writing.
Text is smudged.
If it's
Looks
yellow,
inverted.
we can still attach things
Heart
to it.
can't
If
have
it's
been
white,
before
it's been resolved.
Okay.
I'm understanding.
There's
Took me a
definitely
minute,
something
but...
in his chest. Did the killers leave it there?
Can I... What else do I have here? What are you... Right. Killer profile?
We're dealing with an organized group of killers, not a lone serial killer.
Okay.
The cult of the tree is behind these murders. This case just became much
Are
more
we just
complicated.
taking these people at their
I'll
word?
need to start a new file.
That it's
my
a cult?
first
I mean,
case.
it is.
Exciting.
But...
It is, and we did see the beginning of the game, so we know it is, but still.
Cult stashes? Excuse me? Oh!
These stashes could contain clues about the cult. Better keep an eye out for more.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Okay. Found this in Cauldron Lake.
I need to know more about the cult of the tree if I'm going to shut them down.
Can I have my cursor back and stop being thrown to the bottom of the everything? What kind of cult? Who's involved? What is their goal? What kind of cult? The triangle cult.
I like triangle.
And oh, does that not go there? Okay. Can I put that there? They're hiding their faces. They aren't established enough to operate openly. Connection to Deerfest? Well, we have a lot of cases to start opening. I'm sorry.
Nobody celebrates DFS as hard as
That's
the cult.
it.
I just fucking love Deerfest. Here, that's all of that handled. Do we have any new profiling to do? Likely not, right? Nah. Don't have enough upgrades to upgrade weapons.
Do need a lot of them.
Yeah. Oh wait, what's this? Mayor Setter won't roll over on the issues.
Just every like weird thing we see just gets noted here.
We just shove it into the Mind Palace.
That's cool. Whether or not it has anything to do with this.
Right? We'll just keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind.
You should be wearing gloves. You should be wearing gloves. For so many different reasons right now, but you should be wearing gloves.
The page we found at Cauldron Lake.
Nightingale hunted Saga.
What?
Didn't see her. The Taken could not see into bright light.
I don't feel like it would.
Made them
I guess you'd
vulnerable.
have to make a new model.
Nightingale had no heart, but here he was.
You just have to make them new hands.
Someone's created a fucked up fantasy about us.
Hey, hold on. We found these kinds of pages. I didn't think they were relevant to this case.
How you doing, buddy?
No, wait.
Oh! Okay, bye.
Sheriff?
What the hell?
Oh!
Show me the clicker.
He's still going on about that clicker, huh?
Casey!
Oh. Oh, gee.
Didn't see her. Could not see into bright light.
I'll make you pay.
He's coming.
Oh, gee.
No
Okay.
The page said to get into the light.
Yep. Stay in the light to not get detected. Understood.
That's kind of coming.
He can't see me in the light.
Okay, well, Alex is over there.
The gun's out in the hall. Gotta get it back.
Okay. Ah! Wait, how'd you get there?
Oh.
Okay.
I guess you meant to stay there for longer, or you just instant kills you?
This is not how the story goes, I guess? I thought he was still wandering around the other way.
Yeah, I thought so too.
So that's fine. While knocked onto the ground, you can use dodge to avoid follow-up attacks.
Oh,
So-
is this a game where you get pushed over and can't stand up again?
Sounds like it. The hand player to escape the enemy's grapple unharmed. Are you just gonna load for forever? There we go. Oh no. I can skip. Which is heal up a little bit.
You can't see me in the light. My gun's out in the hall. Gotta get it back. Gotta move. Now.
Now? But he's over there.
Don't move.
Vanished.
Are we good? I mean, Saga, I wouldn't just stand there personally.
Oh.
End of chapter!
Huh.
Cool. You want me to hit continue, or are you doing a cool thing? Oh, okay, you're playing music, and it's probably copyrighted.
Yeah.
So we'll just go ahead and skip.
He didn't have a heart. But he
But,
still
like,
got
funny
up.
musical animations
The
are
page
kind of fun,
predicted
and
all
I'm
of
like,
it.
we don't want
It
to
helped
get
me fight
blasted
him.
for that.
Yeah. We can watch those on our own.
Disappeared? What
Yeah.
the hell is going on here?
Oh,
We need to
jeez.
figure that out if we're gonna do anything about it. Somehow we need to make sense of this.
Well, at least they died in the morgue.
Easy
Convenient.
transport, right?
Saga was
What's
back
this?
at Cauldron Lake. Saga had to pursue Nightingale into the overlap. Finding a way in would be difficult. A ritual. Saga would learn how. Stop the monster.
Okay.
I think it's normal for FBI agents to like rub the fingerprints all over the crime scene, so the other FBI agents know it's their crime scene.
There's no rational explanation.
This is how they
for what
mark
we just
it.
saw.
Yeah, so they make the territory.
I'd love to blame this on mass hallucination caused by inhaling volcanic gas, but we
Standing
both
very
know
close to
that's
you, sir.
bullshit. This was
Blinding you.
supernatural.
Well, I'm glad you were the one to say it. Now we can figure out a way forward.
Like, great. What happened to
Right
Sheriff?
before things got
What
crazy,
happened?
Sheriff Breaker just vanished.
Maybe the sheriff knew more than he was letting on.
He seemed anxious, like he dreaded what was coming. One more mystery. The victim of a ritualistic murder turns into a monster. Is there a connection?
Looks to me like the cult of the tree is performing rituals to create monsters.
I mean, it's a little bit of a leap, but
We need to
whatever.
start learning this cult's goal, their purpose.
Just the fact that they're accepting it as quickly as they are, I think, is where I'm a little lost. But hey,
Yeah.
whatever. What's over here? Anything? No, we've already looked in there. All right. You want to go, Alex? Oh boy. Get in here now?
It doesn't budge.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can't get past her. Case? We look at our case board then? Nightingale attacked us.
A dead man turned into a monster. Light as a way to fight him. Pages predicting the future. There's no rational explanation. This is the case we must solve.
Okay, well. Where did Nightingale go? We're using the words that we're hearing in our head as evidence? Oh no, it's the actual page. Okay. Still debatable, but... Did we find a new lunchbox?
Huh.
Huh.
Ah. Mark all of those as having been found. Anything else? Culture like murder.
Okay, I think some of the stuff got knocked off the board at some
We're
point.
dealing with
Yeah.
an organized group of...
Oh,
the cult
fuck.
of the
Okay.
tree is behind these murders.
I
This
skipped
case just became...
because we did this.
Yeah.
Alright. So now we know. Don't fucking die or everything
know
you've
more
done
about the cult of
previously
the
will
tree
go
if I'm going
away.
to shut them
Should
down.
probably save this.
Right?
Hi, Nam.
Hi, Nam. It's pretty great so
Having
far.
a good time.
Despite me just now complaining about things.
I got cold and it moved all the things that we'd put on the wall off of the wall.
Yeah.
It's a redo a conspiracy board now.
Yeah, how's it going? How are you doing? Who's involved? Colt's goal? Colt goal is turning victims into monsters. Probably. Assumably. Well, we can look at all of these later if we need to. I feel like we know what the evidence is. Because we just experienced it.
Yeah.
Is the thing.
These stashes could contain
Yeah,
clues
nope,
about the
we know,
cult.
Saga. We did this. It'd be great if we found more, right? Nice! Probably consider ordering pizza soon, actually. As I think about it. I'm starting to get just a tiny bit hungry. Yeah. What do you make, and what kind of noms you got? I can't pet deer. Tragic. But yeah, so far it's real good. We haven't like done a whole bunch. We finished the first chapter.
The page places
Wandered around a
Nightingale
whole
back at
bunch.
Cauldron Lake.
But it looks
Calls
real
him a
good and it's
taken.
real fun so far.
We need to head over there, stop him,
Chicken and rice is
before
nice.
anyone else gets hurt.
It's good stuff.
Nice. Listen,
Classic.
even if it's super basic, doesn't mean it's not delicious and great. We're here for
You
it.
got sauce on that? Oh.
We heard gunshots. Y'all okay?
Did you get spooked by the bodies?
Sheriff
Are
Breaker
y'all not
disappeared.
gonna-
Nightingale turned into some sort
You
of
know,
monster,
like,
and there are offices down. You two handle
upset
things here.
'cause,
We
like,
need to get back to Cauldron Lake immediately.
Your boss vanished
Fuck
and
me.
lots of your
That's
coworkers died.
They opened the door, looked at the corpse, and were like, "Y'all okay?" We're not.
Some of us are okay. Some of us have more blood outside of bodies than others.
Nightingale's heart was missing. How could he
Right, I can't go in there.
He's dead.
Alex, where are you going? Okay. That's locked.
Crazy.
Right, we have to go upstairs.
Monsters aren't real.
Right? Pizza sounded real good. We have stuff to
fine
make
pair.
things, but consider, let me just pizza up. You don't have anything to say. Nobody cares about what has just occurred.
My client has been held here long enough. Are you gonna let me speak to them or not?
Just a moment, ma'am. Someone will be right with you.
That alley lady.
I don't think so. She looks older than
Yeah.
the alleyway lady did. I'd consider her, though. Hence why I was looking at her.
Nightingale and his cult are dangerous. We need to be prepared in case things
Alley lady's still
escalate more
there?
than they already have. Can you call it in, KC?
Smart choice, Anderson.
The dead have risen from their graves.
Agent Casey here. Yeah.
You okay with
The
this?
Bright Falls case?
Worried there's going to be a further escalation? That's the immediate worry?
It's
Actually
fine.
find Nightingale at the lake?
The
Where did
pages
he
haven't
go?
been wrong yet.
We can't assume the person writing these pages isn't playing us.
I agree,
Behind, oh,
but it's our best lead.
Oh. Okay,
I'm gonna
that's
take a quick
fine.
look around. Meet you back at the car.
See you in a bit.
Back at the car. Can you drive cars in this? Not yet. We have not been able to just yet.
oh, damn.
I'm not gonna say that we can't do it.
Been in a cab, it played a cutscene.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'm hoping for wiggly car driving. Now, I'm sorry to tell you, but the deadly premonition driving is maybe not the greatest. Maybe kinda rough around the edges. Wild and fun. What are you doing here?
Looking at plants?
How'd you get here? You good? What are you what is he
Did you
doing?
check out the town, Anderson?
Just getting my bearings. Ready to go?
I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Any nice restaurants?
I do love driving Deadly Premonition just because of how fucking whack it is. Whoa, what is happening over here?
Oh.
Why are we looking like this? What's going on?
Something isn't working how it should.
Hey,
It's
how are
fine.
you doing?
Everything has gone wiggly. It's fine, I'm sure. I wanted to look at the board and see if that had expanded any since we've added a whole bunch of stuff and it does not look like it has. I was just curious to see if it did update as we progressed, but it doesn't. Now we know. Wow, this building is broken, I think. Probably just not be in here.
It's
fine.
Let's just not worry about that anymore.
Yeah. I need a car to travel between locations. I don't think we can drive.
Maybe 3.
Tragic. Really.
Yeah, horrible. I mean, the cat was horrible in the first one, but still, it's the principle.
I just want to drive a wiggly car. It's are you thinking about it, game? Hey, game? Or are you gonna crash? Is that a thing?
Oh jeez.
Hey, Alan.
Alan.
Hey, buddy, how you feeling? Oof. Oh. Sound. Oh,
Hey.
Oh, hey!
Just give him a minute. He's thinking about the next chapter.
Anderson. I know
This is
why
fine.
Nightingale was here 13 years ago. He was chasing a writer.
Right, welcome back, game. You did it.
Tammy mentioned him. She's writing a book on his disappearance.
You know the detective character from his books, Alex Casey.
Yeah, I've heard the jokes at the office. Cold case Casey. Murder case Casey. Sorry.
Ha ha. It's the same name, similar job. It's the first thing anyone thinks of. It annoyed me, but that was it. Then, 10 years ago, I started getting strange letters in the mail. Fragments of prose describing murders.
This is very
You've
normal.
heard the stories about what happened in New York. Some of it, at least. Bodies started to pile up. It was a murder cult. Turns out the fragments sent to me were from the crime books of Alan Wake. The cult was copycatting the murders from the books. In their
Were they
heads,
copycatting,
performing a
or were
ritual
they
to bring Wake
forced
back.
to do the murders?
Their imagined prophet. After that case, I started looking into Wake's disappearance on the side.
And you thought this case might be connected to him? His name does keep popping up.
I just wanted you to have all the facts.
Next time, give them to me before we find ourselves in the middle of a horror story.
All right. I think we're gonna pause.
The page
for a
says
quick minute.
Nightingale's in something called an overlap.
Quick break so that we can order pizza and I can use the restroom because I've stinked so much waiter. But yeah, we'll do a quick break. I also just need to stretch because we've been here for 2 hours already.
That's
Oh
fine.
God.
Stretch.
Yeah, quick break, quick stretch. I'll play some music and I'll have words on stream up if anyone wants to do that. Absolutely don't have to. It's just there. It's just a thing. And we'll be right back.
There. It was broken because I was hitting the wrong button. That's what happened there. That sounds stream broke, so just keep yelling, meat. It's fine. It was working like in the browser and then it stopped functioning. I don't know what happened. Maybe my internet just kind of had a little hiccup and words said, "I'm
Need to
done."
figure out exactly what that means.
Manatee work. Meat work in browser and then meat
Thanks.
with an N.
Let's start
Didn't-
looking for
didn't
Nightingale
happen
where it
well.
was killed.
It's fine. Looks really pretty. You know? I am just gonna stop constantly and just be like, wow! Wait. Devo, speaking of wow. Hello? Pizza has been ordered. Break has been taken.
The writer of these pages knows what will happen. Because they're behind this, or because they can see what's coming. Impossible things are happening here. A world operating on different rules. I need to understand this strange logic. To see the clues. Solve the case.
Let's see if we can keep playing out. Keep solving these mystery one with so full of pizza.
I've been thinking more about the code of the tree.
I definitely want to do like slightly longer streams for Alan just because it's good and I'm liking it, but also I don't want us to like go too long.
We're not seeing the full picture yet.
How are you folks doing?
Hi, we're fine. You authorized to be here?
Saga Anderson. Are you two supposed to be here?
You
I'm
loud.
Hilmo Koskela. Fantastic to meet you. And yes, Stephen here hired me to show him through the woods. He's in town on important government business. Fixing this impressive piece of hardware.
I work for the FBC, ma'am. I'm authorized to be here.
And I bet you two are here about that murder. Nasty stuff. How's it going?
You have an issue like that. We have absolutely no way to keep people from just wandering into the crime scene.
People tend to tell me things.
That is a bit of a
Brothers
problem.
are kind of a household name around here. Speaking of, if you're looking for some fun, stop by Watery. Just down the road from Bright Falls, there's our Coffee World Amusement Park. There's
They have an amusement park?
Sauna de Vista. And we offer a variety of guided tours, hunting, fishing, hiking, whatever strikes your fancy.
There's an amusement park about coffee. Coffee-themed amusement park. Yeah.
What is this thing?
Bright Falls
It's
loves
just a
fucking
monitoring station.
coffee, huh?
The Federal Bureau of Control checks volcanic activity and air toxicity levels. No need to worry, though. It's mostly for research purposes.
That's one gorgeous sweater saga. Looks Nordic. I bet a family member made it.
My mother made this sweater for me. How do you know?
Would this conversation happen if she was wearing the
My
OG
mom used
Diner
to knit
sweater?
sweaters for me and my brother. Watery, my hometown, was founded by
Oh,
Finnish immigrants.
100%. Oh,
So between your name
100%.
and the sweater, I figured your family might be from Finland too. Suomi, Finland. Pulla, Karjalan piirakka.
Close. My mom's family is from Sweden originally. I don't know much about them beyond that. The sweater is just something to remember her by.
I feel like that they just like throw in random Swedish people every so often.
Stephen, we're
Yeah,
investigating the murder that occurred nearby.
Just to be like, remember.
What can you tell me
We are
about your
Swedish.
bureau?
Nothing that isn't classified, I'm afraid. But I don't know anything about a murder. Operations here
This is
are run by a
very
different
precious.
department. I'm just here to make some repairs. The wiring on this thing frays every couple months.
Yep, that's the raccoons. They grow real big here with teeth like you wouldn't believe. Can not run through a garbage can.
That's all for now.
Let's talk to everyone.
What'd you find there, Steven?
Maintenance note. Clear signs of tampering. Signals rerouted into a transmitter that is not one of ours. I fixed it so any alerts will come our way, but it's definitely concerning. I'll make a report for the investigations department. Leaving this here in case I'm not the next person to fix this thing. If you're reading this, check for tampering. We may want to put more secure metal casings around the whole thing so that the raccoons can't get to it anymore. Stephen Lynn, chief technician. Sorry, got distracted by them. the Coffee World endorsement down here. This is from the Federal Bureau of Control. Yeah, it's true. Just says. Beautiful. It does actually look like a thing that would be in control as well. Absolutely.
Let's get to the murder
It
site,
looks
Casey.
like complicated, but not like super high tech. It's just got a lot of bits on it. Yeah. Also, I didn't need to take my gun out, but that's fine. How do I put it away? Alex, how do I put my gun away? Alex, no. Oh, it's gone now.
A lot of things about this case keep bothering me. But one thing feels
No, I
really
love the Easter eggs that they put in.
Breaker's disappearance.
Very good.
I don't get the feeling Nightingale was responsible.
He was about to give you more of those pages. Something
Was he?
didn't want us to have them?
Was
Or
he?
was protecting him from Nightingale? Spontaneous combustion? I don't know. Not the kind of disappearance
It's
we
gotten
wanted
wet down
to
here, huh?
solve. Our crime scene's drowning. I never minded rain. Feels like home.
No sign of Nightingale. But the page did place him at Cauldron Lake.
Well,
in an
glad
overlap.
we
So how do
collected
we follow him there?
most of our
Maybe
evidence.
something around here will tell us.
Something around here, like these weird footprints, maybe?
Bare feet. Nightingale. I'll see where these footprints lead. Can you come through?
Where am I in relation to anything? Point of interest. Oh! So I said it marks that. Yeah, from a little bit. Can I get in here? I didn't really try to get in there when we first showed up because it's a little distracted by the whole there's a body here situation. We looked at the lunch boxes, but we didn't look at anything that looked like it might be correct. Yeah. Is there no door on this side? This will take me to the door. Oh no, we don't have to point our gun when I zoom in. I promise. I don't want to shoot Peppa. Unless... No, we don't want to shoot Cabin. Light it down. See if I can. You only kill a Cabin? Okay, this is how we get in. Who's sleeping here? I think we should probably... Something we should probably know, at least. Yeah! Like, what if it's the murderers? If we know about, like, beer outside, there's a lot more stuff here. Right? Okay, we are collecting more evidence. Great. Room over there, before we go there... Can I unlock you? No, absolutely not. But he was sitting here. I'm knocking everything over.
Hey, Casey.
My god.
What's the far's favorite shape?
Please, Anderson. Just one case without the
A triangle.
I don't get it.
Yes, you do.
Saga. Saga, please. Can't do this, Saga. Ooh, new conversation. Okay. Before we go do that... Oh, look at all this. What is this? Monday 9/3. Some suspicious activity spotted. Fielder thought he saw movement in the bushes. Footprints around the area were found, but some were compromised by the fielder. Note to self, train the fielder. Tuesday 9/4. Nothing to report. Some animals. Regular. Wednesday 9/5. Hunters out after dark. Butchers? Heard some gunshots. Not one of ours. Gotta keep an eye on these people. Could get more than they bargained for out here. Who wrote that? You and I. Planet something. Caramel? It's not funny caramel. Sounds delicious. Caramel planet. You guessed it. Yeah. Probably get a tummy ache from all the sugar too, but, you know. It's fine. But there's no point of interest in it. Like, here? There is one that might be on the other side of the logo. Maybe. Maybe that's what it is. There's one like really close to the one. Okay, well, can't go through there yet, so I guess we'll just go back here and talk to Alex, because he has new conversation points. One day we'll get a crowbar, and then know us. We'll be unstoppable. We'll be able to get everywhere. We got all the lunchboxes.
We've seen this symbol before.
Oh, hey!
Good eye.
Why are you so cold?
After we find Nightingale, what
I don't
then?
know if that when to pick the body up.
I've never arrested a monster.
I've watched you arrest plenty of monsters, Anderson.
You know what I mean.
I mean
Monsters.
literal monsters.
Light worked against him at the morgue. That might be the only way to stop him from hurting anyone else. Monsters, overlaps, rituals. What do you make of all of this?
The killers are usually the ones performing the ritual, not the detective. Acting out their sick fantasy. They may be trying to get you involved, forcing you into their twisted
You're
world.
saying some weird
But
sick
with dead men
fantasy,
coming
but you
alive,
have seen
the word
the
ritual
zombie.
starts to have some weight behind it. We need
Maybe
to look
that's their
around.
sick fantasy, though.
Learn
Maybe
what
they
this
just
ritual
really
is.
like zombies. There is a point where you do have to start taking it seriously. What do you mean? Where am I in relation to the door? Door's like over here somewhere, huh? Yeah, it's a room I can't get into just yet. Okay. So, let's go follow these footprints, I guess. Messed around enough. Kind of hard to see. That's two. There we go. Might be the lighting up. Possibly. Get the right angle. That's pretty dark. Yeah. Birds? I
The
heard
tracks
birds.
lead into the water.
Well,
Where'd
this
you go
is
from here?
not particularly helpful.
I can feel something. A presence. I know Nightingale is somewhere around Cauldron
Just
Lake.
do this right now.
The tree was a threshold. This place and the dark place. You're in over your head. Next stop, Caldera Street Station.
The threshold. Like a doorway. Leading
That
to
is what
Nightingale.
threshold means.
It's somehow connected to a tree. Which is ladle?
What do you mean? Of course it's the big tree. Listen, he's not always up to speed on some things. It's got the voices in her head have to be very specific, but she's not quite gonna get there. Right, there are a lot of weird sounds happening. Yeah. But I don't want to get jumped. Alright, we're at the witch's ladle. Great. What's that?
Seems like it's reacting to These aren't the same tracks that were here before. They're headed into the tree, not out of it.
Oh, I don't like that as a thing. Hold on. I have to switch the controls for that because you have to click the mouse button or the mouse wheel. And that's gross. That's weird. That's a bad option. Can I? We'll do that.
My flashlight burned the dark stuff away. It was
That's
covering
better.
another page.
The fuse was in place. Saga stepped into the witch's hut. Inside, a bright light. There were objects that stood out to Saga, as if the light had manifested them.
The witch's hut.
Alan, you have to do something other than just
Okay.
using her name, please.
I trust the pages to
You've
lead
said
to
Saga
Angela.
so many times already. Have to mix it up. Right, let's go back to the house, which is... Hut is there. Oh, have to go all the way around. Maybe? Hut is up.
First thing you boost the flashlight by just aiming.
Yeah.
Which is very convenient, but I think also, like, not the easiest thing to, like,
This is the witch's
like,
hut.
the aim button is actually just boost flashlight. You are always aiming in the first game. It is kind of, it's kind of weird. It doesn't quite feel exactly right when you first pick it out, because you think you need to aim, and you're actually just making the flashlight go big.
Page described the hut being lit.
I don't mind having a button dedicated to focusing the flashlight, but it's...
Probably shouldn't be the middle mouse button.
It should not be the middle mouse button, for sure. Then I went in and saw a bright light. You want me to look at this? No. There was something lurking around behind it.
Thought I saw something in the woods.
Fuse.
Probably just a deer, but I'm gonna check it out.
Okay. I found another page.
Alex is gonna fucking
Following up on a
die.
lead. Keep checking in.
Roger.
He'll be fine. Has he got painkillers?
Here's, I mean, I hope, but also I hope he doesn't.
He's busted.
Hello?
He's got dual Berettas.
He would. Fuses?
This one looks good. People
Pretty
should
great.
really stop littering, though.
I mean, it was in a bucket. It's technically not litter. I mean, this is all litter.
Wait, is there another story?
Yeah, that's one that we picked up earlier about the kid being like, my friend's moving away. There's the lunchbox that we got. We kind of...
Already been freaked out.
Yeah, we kind of explored already. Is the thing.
A little bit. Get a look around.
It was important that we wandered around.
Holistic detective.
Just gotta take a peek. Oh, I can save. I can save on the wrist. Sorry. Delicious.
Another page. Making
History's
progress.
almost got you.
I forgot how to breathe for a second. It's fine. Alright, that wasn't there before, though.
The image of the witch in the sign. Saga addressed the witch. The smudged line on the heart. The second part recited from memory. I brought you the heart, witch. Show me the terror. Saga pushed the heart through the hole in the sign.
Buddy. That's gonna be down at the ladle. Because that's got the image of the witch.
You need a hat, though.
Yeah, do we go back to the morgue?
I mean, there is a stab. I don't know if we're going to pick that for FBI, but I don't know.
Is Alex willing to share his? Let me borrow it for a minute?
Anyway, go step out.
Hey, I need it for this weird hunch that I have.
Really cool based out.
Let's see, hold on. What there's a container in there? What's...
He's off. Doing Alex stuff.
Yeah, I think he said he was gonna chase like a deer or something. Or he thought he saw a deer and was gonna go check it out. Which it's like, well, if it's a deer, why do you need to go look?
Saga, I have to go chase a deer.
What if that deer has painkillers? Maybe the container that I missed has a heart. Maybe it's got what we need. Oh, there it is. Okay. No. It's just what is that? What?
Getting like boxes of ammo, I think, but I don't know what ammo. We have a few different little boxes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look at our manuscripts real fast. Because maybe they'll give us a little more insight. I'll go find the safe
fuse
haven.
was in place. She found it among the junk in the forest. Saga stepped inside the witch's hut. Something rushed through her. A presence. Familiar. She couldn't quite place it. Something long forgotten. She tried to hold on to it, but it was already gone. Inside, a bright light. Saga felt safe, like nothing could hurt her here. There were objects that stood out to Saga as if the light had manifested them, pulled them from the darkness. A shift in reality, heavy with hidden meanings. A coffee thermos, a shoebox.
Also, half of these aren't
and a
even
bucket,
sentences.
A poster on the wall, and in the cabinet, another manuscript page.
Okay, well we got the other one.
Witch's ladle, towering over Saga, watching her and the witch. The image of the witch in the sign, Nightingale's heart, a cold, dead lump in her hand.
Yeah,
Her definition of sanity had changed since she arrived in this town. But she trusted the pages, was forced to. Saga addressed the witch. She squinted to read the first part of the ritual words, the smudged line on the heart. The second part recited from memory, the words she had read on the page. I brought you the heart, witch. Show me the terror. Saga pushed the heart through the hole in the sign. This was the key. The tree was the threshold.
Okay. So I guess we go back.
Seems like.
Are we gonna tell Alex? Hey Alex, I gotta run back to the sheriff's department real fast. I gotta go pick up a heart.
I gotta fetch that hat, Alex. Pretty easy for wizard stuff.
Hello? Oh, someone is in there? Hello?
Awesome.
Bruh. Wow! Okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that.
Oh, jeez. It's tough.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Occultist. A monster. Like Nightingale.
He has gone very red.
Got most of his skin off the thing.
Yeah. Still very wiggly. Alright, well, I would love to... I didn't get hit. Well, I did get a little hit.
I think you're fine. I think it, well, your health's been healing when you were in light. It's only healed up to the halfway point. You were just on the, from that one cutscene.
Yeah. We'll go ahead and... That's how we get in here! Oh, control! Okay, we have a gun. What is this? Logan's Charm? Oh, cute. Don't move. We have our gun. We have handgun ammo. That's what that is. Adhesive bandage that restores a good amount of health. Battery packs. Adhesive bandages. Yeah. Pain
That's a
meds.
tiny amount of health.
Ah, but he'll seem alright. Okay. Let's do. Can I eat you? What? Thanks. I think that's. Didn't do too much, huh? Nope. No. We'll do those just because they take forever and that's good enough. Yeah. Bad freezer. Junk on the ground. What are you? That's amazing. Oh, jeez. Check with Lady Fortuna at the counter. Okay. Yeah. That? Bottle Washington. A05 13 17 23 39 45. Oh god. 705 713 717 723. Don't forget update code. 7. Huh. All of those are crossed out on the thing. Oh. Oh. Wait. One numbers here. Yeah. 202 555 0173. It's a Lady Fortuna, so I assume palm reading. Yeah, that makes more sense. What is it? Which of these is it? 731? Just do the last 3 backwards? Possibly? And it's close to the other numbers? Yeah. Okay, let's try that. Where is 7 3 1? No. Okay. Check with Lady Fortuna at the counter. We call Lady Fortuna and ask what the... Ma'am, do you know what the passcode is? I'm checking with you. Sticky notes there. 705, 713, 717, 723. There's a 723 in there. Oh, so being it's... Hold on. 5, 13, 17, 23. 5, 13, 17, 23, 39. So 7, 39? That's a weird end. Yeah. Oh, man. Let's see if that actually works, though. Hey! Look at that tiny, funny baby shotgun. And then how do I... Possibly. It's been delivered. There's pizza here. Hold on, let's grab pizza real fast. Pizza fast. Okay, wait, you go down there now. Be right back, we got urgent pizza. It's pizza matters. Pizza. My God, it smells like pizza. 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 We're back and we got pizza. It's great. How do I swap weapons? Nope, not that. Not that either. Nope, keep that on. Oh, I have to like, oh, dude. Okay, that's fine. We can do... Quick slot that there. Quick slot that. There are a lot of quick slots there. Yeah, we do. I see that little marker right there. No. Are you sure? Oh. I see. I understand. Okay. You're looking at a pizza. Can't be around your farts.
Be in here.
What do you mean it's the solution? The solution to the heart situation? There's still a locked door in there. Maybe not. Maybe I don't have the DNA on top. That's what I thought, but yeah. Hey, game. The door is locked anymore. Door is definitely not locked. Just saying. Okay. Right, we were gonna try and head back to see if that was gonna get us where we need to go. Yeah, I'm gonna go get that hat. Because I don't have any other options. Hey! I opened up the map, it's gonna take a second to load, I think. There it goes. Do you wanna... There we go. Even if the door was still locked, the wall is now unlocked, so it shouldn't bother us with this information. Right.
Saga edged toward the broken door, her gun ready, flashlight aimed ahead. Nightingale said it would be here. The Cauldron Lake General Store was overgrown, left to rot. Saga thought about the cult of the tree. They'd been here, waiting, planning a gruesome ritual murder. Meanwhile, they played cards in the general store, like it was just another late-night poker game. Saga stepped closer to the door.
That's what that noise is in the background, don't worry about it.
There was a loud crash. Saga found herself face to face with a cultist, a hulking figure in a raincoat. We watch in the night, wild eyes behind a plastic deer mask, an axe in his raised hand.
Let's, wander around, I guess. See what we can see. Bye, bye. I don't know if I'm going the right way. This is the other thing. I guess I am going the wrong way, aren't I? This is fine. We'll just be lost for a little bit. Maybe we'll stumble upon Alex. Like, hey bud, what are you doing? You find the deer? What dude? I didn't wander away. He heard you on the phone. And it'll be real scary. This way. Ask me if I had any Asked me if I'd found the deer images, which is fitting. Because frankly, I had no idea what she was talking about. Oh no. Oh no. Get out of here. Why don't we just monologue out loud? And might not know that anyone else can hear it. That'd be beautiful. If they could genuinely be here for that. Broke that time. Wait. Okay.
Nice talking to you, too.
Hope your control stuff. Oh, dude. Hold on. I guess we don't go there, actually, is the thing. How do I get back? I think there's gonna be like a crossover thing, or if it is just gonna be Easter egg. I prefer it to just be Easter egg, to be honest. I would like for it to stay Easter eggs, but we'll see, because that's kind of like big. It would definitely be here though, the way like super after Alan Wake happened, they're all over this place. I think in law that the like witch is bad, but the lake is magic anyway. And they're just kind of, the witch is using the magic light. So maybe it's a deck of a magic light. Gotta check out the magic light. I mean, the sign said that was for the lake house, so it's I'm assuming that that's like the house on the lake that they stayed at in the first one, which would make sense why they would quarantine that, and not want anyone over there. But that also to be fair, the house wasn't there. Yeah, must have always was. But this motorbike is this. Harley, can you not be under my blanket, please? Not allowed to use my car? Car can't be used? I figured that out. Okay. Guess we just have to find out. Maybe, or I have to go to Eastward. See if that is what we need to do.
Already got the answers to these.
Okay. Did the whole thing on our own, right?
The page from the witch's hut seems to be describing some kind of ritual.
These are really good pieces. Good choice. Glad we did it.
Nightingale's heart disappeared from the morgue. Where is it now?
Oh, they take it with. Excuse me.
To get into the overlap, I need to find Nightingale's heart. Read the line imprinted on it, plus the line on the page to the witch's ladle sign. Then push the heart through the hole in the sign.
I mean, we know this.
I need Nightingale's heart to get to the overlap. Where is it?
There's your heart.
Close. He was there, but he was risen. Nightingale was there. The opposite of sunspots. Who said that?
That's not it. I don't have what I need to find Nightingale's heart.
Oh,
there must be more.
Where is it?
Nightingale's heart. Where is it?
While they played cards in the general store, the witch had stolen his heart. Get out of my house.
Is it there now?
Nightingale's heart is at the general store, in a fridge.
Here's the thing though, man. I looked there. Yeah. I looked there, because I saw that symbol and was like, oh, that's weird. But, you say so? Why am I at the floor? Why was I looking at the floor? No. Psychology? A lot of equipment just lying around.
Okay.
Symbols. Okay. Great. That's
I need to
everything.
check the general store for the heart.
Casey!
Casey,
I like
I'm headed to the general store.
a little
I
investigation.
think I know how to get into the overlap.
Wish I didn't have to do it every single time
Some
in order to progress. It got me so low.
Did you get lost?
Oh, what's known as all again? Right. Okay.
The years I spent with my ex-wife.
Keep saying.
I'll find my way back, don't you worry about it.
Why did
Is
voice not
that
turn itself off?
better? Sometimes you just gotta hear everyone in big mode. Okay. Hopefully it hasn't been like that for too long.
Sometimes
No.
voice might just turn itself on for
Yeah.
no reason, and we can't tell on our end.
I could set it up so that I could hear it. Like I can hear myself while
That'd be really
it's on.
annoying.
And yeah, that's why I don't have that feature on. Because it would be too much.
You just have to like check on it every like few minutes and see if it's turned itself on.
More or less.
Oh.
Well, you got a free voice mod moment there. Thank you for letting me know, Nem. I don't mind it slipping through every so often, but it can be a little frustrating when it's like I don't have anyone else to tell me that it's a thing, and then I listen back to the VOD and it's like, oh, I've been like that for like an hour.
Oh,
that's cool.
We're yelling about pizza and Big Mac.
Pizza. I love pizza. Feel better now that I've eaten. So, you know, that's great. Sometimes you just need a little snacky snack. Ooh, it sure is green in here. Can't stop focusing when I'm clicking.
The text on the heart is clearer now. Legible.
Okay, can you take it?
I feel like I recognize this. The fridge. The heart. I knew
Oh
it
god,
would
it
be
wiggled.
here. Like I saw it in a dream. And now
Nice
I need
wiggly
to
heart.
give the heart to the witch.
Wiggly
Makes total
heart.
sense.
Makes total sense. Also, did that little locked icon go away? Absolutely not.
You're taken, like Nightingale. Watch yourself out there.
Yeah, thanks
Who
for the
is?
heads up. I'm still finding my way back.
You have the worst sense of direction.
Any city in America I can get through drunk and blindfolded. It's these damn trees.
Okay.
Damn.
I'm en route to Witch's Ladle. I need to perform a ritual to open the overlap. This case just keeps getting weirder.
Exactly.
But it is exciting.
It's so green and pleasant. It's making me know.
Horrible. Can't believe Alex Casey was actually. Can you not touch me? Sorry, there's a cat under my blanket and he keeps like brushing up against my leg and it's horrible.
Wanted pizza, no one gave me any pizza.
Not gonna get any pizza. Oh shit. Why are you doing that?
Oh.
Ah! My god. I don't know where anything is. I'm stuck in a corner. I am stuck in a corner. I am stuck in a corner. Why are you doing that? You have to shoot them, Saga.
A lot of blood comes out when you shoot the little red bit. I think that guy's got his shadow armor back.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, if you're like anywhere near them, she'll just like lunge at him and try
Yeah,
and
she
smack
was doing
him.
that from pretty far away.
Yeah, and it's like, nope, we're just trying to shoot him.
Other than you're not ever expecting it to happen, it didn't seem bad. Like
No.
it seemed like a good little melee.
But I didn't want a melee. It was good melee, except for the fact that it was melee when I didn't want it. But it's fine. Hey, do you want this heart? Hey, I have this heart in my inventory. You want it? You want that?
The wave crashed on the far side of the mirror. I brought you the Heart Witch. Show me the terror.
That poem rhyming up.
Kinda seems like. I mean. Yeah. Probably where, like, Zane and I guess Alan at this point were trapped, right?
I think I'm in the overlap. Are you still on your way?
I guess.
Casey!
I'm not sure how much of Zane still exists.
Fuck.
Well, I guess, like, at
Okay,
this point,
Sokka.
Zane's, like,
Going
fucking
solo.
gone. But when he, like, first sort of got wrapped up in all of this, right? Like, there were these, like,
Yeah.
weird, like, little pocket dimensions, right? Kind of, vaguely.
Logan? Logan!
Oh, our kid's fucking
Where
dead.
are you?
I mean, Rose told us,
Logan's
but...
back in Virginia. You're imagining things.
Please help me.
What was that?
Is that an Alan?
Wait. Did I get turned around? No, this is right. This place is looping.
Is it right?
Like a nightmare.
Ben tried to like stop the witch doing stuff by writing himself out of existence so that he never came and started writing the story that were gonna make him superpowered.
Yeah.
I don't know what Alan did, because it's weird. But like there were little bits of Zane left, and that's what helped you through the game.
I mean, Alan is Zane. Not actually, but, like, he's assumed that role, right?
Yeah. Wait. I need that.
Oh my goodness. Barley, why are you like this? But even then, like, the witch or the monster or whatever you want to call it did kind of, like, take the writers not out of existence, but, like, into its own little space.
Yeah, that's true. So is that like, are we talking like two parallel dimensions here? Zane might just not be in any dimension anymore.
Zane doesn't exist?
Yeah.
Who is Zane? Why are we saying, what is this? What is that?
Never
What
heard
is?
of it.
I am out of batteries, which is
Could be an issue.
a bit of a
He's
problem
here.
for me.
Nightingale.
Well, I hope he's fucking not, because I
Does he
can't
have
fight him.
batteries?
I'm gonna sort of eat every battery I own.
You don't regenerate over time anymore.
Who is that?
Oh, he's jumping over things. Okay.
It's like they're coming in over a bad signal.
This
shame box.
Timeout box. The box of shame. Barley, I'll move all that for you, okay? I promise. Thank you.
Nightingale's badge.
Give.
Original?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
only one bar. Ugh. I need more than that. Also, before we go, let's go ahead and just, like, eat one of these. Just for good measure. Not being as bad forest anymore, I think. Ooh. Things wiggly.
It's really cool effect.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Nightingale needs to put some pants on.
Nightingale.
Oh! Fuck. Reload, man. Where did he go? Where did he go?
Get away!
Scared? Also, almost out of bullets. Alright, let's go. It's time to go.
Yeah.
Get up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Faster the better, Saga. It's time to go. Ah! How do I leave? Yeah.
Where'd you come from, Nightingale?
Be the best time to stop and grab that, but hey.
You gotta grab it, stop and grab it at some point.
Something tells me we probably won't come back here. So, you know. Grab, go. Grab and go, let's go.
The old grab and go.
Oh god. Screen is wiggly. I can't see. There's a man who is naked and chasing me through the woods. Get it?
Put pants on and walk.
Fuck, where is he? I think I successfully dodged. Am I attacking you again? Is that what's happening here? Where are you?
He was a tornado for a while, and then we couldn't attack him. Now he's a guy again, so I think we probably can.
Oh, come on. Saga, we have to talk about the dodge. Now it's bad, actually. It's real bad.
Gotta get away!
Nope, okay.
This seemed like this might be
Gotta move.
progressing.
Now.
Yeah. It's just eating up all my supplies, and it's sad.
Yeah. Might not be as ludicrously generous as the first one, huh?
Well, now we know. Grab. Here's the thing. I'm scared.
Yeah, he's a little spooky as this lad.
He's very aggressive and he's very fast. And Saga, I don't think has quite the right amount of hustle for the kind of situation that we're in at the moment.
He just smashed through the wall over there. This... I feel like he's not currently a tornado.
Saga, you have to move. You have to move. You have to move. I was dodging.
Yeah. Can't just like permanently stun lock them, no matter how much health they have when the armor's up either.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate, but we done it. Okay.
Hey.
Oof.
30 XP.
That was cool. That was rough, but that was cool.
Who are you?
What is this? Who are you?
Hear me.
I'm Saga Anderson, FBI. I can hear you.
Cauldron Lake.
Yes, I'm at Cauldron Lake. Where are you?
Not to escape. In danger. The dark presence.
Danger.
Oh, Saga, you got a big ol' ouchie on your face.
Right, bro. Really annoying.
Right.
Hey!
Unwashed ass and dirty lake now. Great.
Are you okay?
No! It's my fault! It got out with my face! Scratch!
Sir, calm down. I'm gonna need you to take a breath.
He's changed the story. The dark presence. We must stop it before...
Easy now. First things first. What's your name?
My name is Alan Wake. I'm a writer. I've been...
Wake? Where did you come from? You've been missing for 13 years.
13?
Yeah, buddy, it's been a minute. Ow. Skip it because it's a song.
We are gonna be skipping the music.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry,
Where did you go?
y'all.
All of a
Did it save?
sudden, the radio stopped working, and then
Let it do
the
its thing. And then we'll
flooding
probably call it here?
disappeared.
That's a good spot.
Yeah.
Forest.
Alan looks so
this
smelly.
Think
Even
it
more
is?
so than usual.
Casey, say hello to Alan Wake.
Waterlogged,
Mr. Wake,
Old
this is Special
Spice,
Agent Alex
unwashed
Casey.
ass.
He'll escort you to our car. Casey, I'll meet you there, right after I take a look around.
Unwashed.
If the flooding's
waterlogged
receded, there might be
ass.
evidence we missed earlier.
Okay.
Horrible.
See you there.
Why are
Alex
you so
Casey?
stinky?
How? Am I still... Is this the dark place? No, it can't be. I got out.
Yeah, the PI from your books has the same name as me. Great. Moving on.
Is it the menu? Would you like to tell me when the last time it saved was? Because I did not. It's the load option. 40 minutes ago, 8 minutes ago, 3 minutes ago.
Probably like at the cutscene.
Yeah, that'd be fine. That's fine. 3 minutes is not horrible. I can work with that. I very rarely pay attention to when the autosave icons actually show up because I'm too busy looking at everything else. No farts for you.
Tied up my wires.
That's what he does. But yeah, we'll do more Alan possibly tomorrow. But definitely sometime soon.
You have a thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll see if we have time to pen Alan into our busy schedule.
Otherwise, I mean, we'll do more of this at some point in the future because this is great and I really like it so far. Let me just quickly change that because why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, let me see if we have anybody online that we can read into. Chu is playing a game called Suika Game, but their title is Fruit Game, Fruit Game, Fruit Game! And I need to know what this is.
Fruit game?
It's a fruit game!
Fruit game. Fruit game?
I am familiar with this kind of a game. Let's go say hi to Chu, because we love Chu. Oh, we just have caps lock on for a minute. That's fine. But yeah, I'll post to Discord stuff whenever it is that we do this next stream. So look there if you wanna.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we'll see y'all next time. Again, I've forgotten how to stream and I don't remember how I usually sign off. So I guess we'll just go now.
Bye.
Bye, friends.